thanks for joining us today. Ben and I are going to do a quick little recap of SJ's latest video on her evidence for Jesus' resurrection with Daniel Ray and her response to, is it Dr. Kip Davis?
Mm-hmm. Yep, Dr. Kip Davis.
Yeah. So let's see what we got here. I'm not sure if this volume is even working. Doesn't look. Can you hear that? I can't hear that.
No, I can't hear it either.
Let's see if we can figure this out. I've never done a share stream kind of thing. All right, let's do this. Let's do this.
We might should have tested this beforehand.
I got you. There was a share audio button I did not click. Okay.
Having a little bit of a
Can you hear that?
message here. There we go.
Oh, yeah.
We'll be able to get Daniel in here in just a moment. And so, hi, everybody.
You can't hear it?
I can't hear
I
it.
hope I am running right now. I think I am. So,
I have to try something else. We may not end up doing this. We may just sit here and have a chit chat. Why is she still talking?
I ask that question all the time.
All right, let me do this. Nobody's watching. It's just us, buddy.
We can say whatever we want.
and so let me just give me one moment as we get going. But before we do that, I want to say hi. Hopefully
You know
you guys
what? I
can
bet
see
you I
me.
know why.
I'm going to check this really quickly on my other computer.
Figured it out.
Get
I
in
bet
here.
you I know
All right,
why.
we are running live. It looks like.
I
Perfect.
bet you it's going to be a pain
So
for me to
hopefully
fix
I
it.
will have
But
Mr.
we will try it
Daniel
real quick.
in here in just a moment. So I've got Daniel Ray of Storing of the Cosmos coming in, and he's going to be chatting with me, and we're going to talk about the ancient evidence for Jesus' resurrection. And we're also going to talk about some of the other issues associated with that, such as what does it take? What does a historian need to know to determine whether or not?
Oh, well. Looks like it's just going to be just the two of us. So why do you hate God, Ben?
Well, I stubbed my toe once and he didn't heal me, so that's why I hate him. It's
That's
just
a valid reason.
the best reason I can come up with.
Ooh, John Buck just sent me a. He said, man. John Buck just converted to Catholicism about a month or two ago.
Yeah, I thought I saw that. It's an interesting route to take. What was he before? Do you remember?
I think he was just non-denominational. That's what most of them tend to be.
So Baptist? Is that what you're telling me?
Is that what that means?
I mean, usually everyone who's non-denominational believes the same exact things pretty much that a Baptist does. At least that's been my experience.
Like, you mean like Baptist, like everybody's going to hell, or Baptist like Ken Ham and Kent Hovind Baptist?
Yeah. Oh yeah. Gosh. Good old Kent Hovind. Yeah. No, I mean, like, but you can only get baptized if you're saved, and what else? Usually, kind of a congregational approach to church government and all that jazz. Not Presbyterianism for sure.
I grew up Methodist, which is, I think, worst of all of them. From what I've heard.
I don't know about that.
Yeah, because we just don't care about any of it. So what are you working on right now? I know you always have things going on.
Yeah, no. So I've been working on the next episode of Amateur Hour, which will be it'll it'll just be me, not an actual interview. I'll be talking about 5 of my favorite contradictions in the Bible.
There are none. I'll save you that.
Yeah, it's going to be a very short stream. I'm also working on. Well, I finished writing the last post for the Invasion of the Bible Snatcher series, where I deal with Ray Comfort's book on scientific facts in the Bible. So those posts should start dropping sometime in September, and they'll go every 2 weeks into, I think, December. There's enough of them. So it feels good to finish that, because that's just a very tedious book to go through, because his arguments are just so bad. He doesn't read the Bible in context. He just pulls out, words here and there to make his argument. And then I've also got a new podcast dropping called Bible Study for Amateurs. And that'll be they're just 10-minute episodes. And that'll start dropping in September. What else? I've been doing so much. It's just I do so much. I keep a little sheet with all the stuff I need to do to work on. Oh yeah.
Somebody else wants to join.
Oh really?
Yeah.
It's gonna be a party.
It might be. We'll see. This is a 16-year-old kid. I think he's 16. God, what's his name? Really philosophical dude. Young kid. Used to talk to Inspired Christianity all the time.
I don't know.
Youth Resist.
Yeah, that name's familiar.
Yeah. Let's see if you follow him. A lot of people do. Matt Pig does.
Is that his screen name?
Yeah. Non-Alchemist does.
Is it
Let's see.
No, I see who you're. Yeah, I think I know. I don't follow him. It's amazing who I don't follow, though.
If I'm not mistaken, they were recently a Christian and have turned to an atheist here recently, over the last couple of months, because of philosophical arguments against the existence of God. He's big on the philosophy side, as far as like Oppie and Malpass and Strobel, and not Lee Strobel, Mackie. Hey, John Buck is in the waiting room.
Hey,
This is John Buck. How are you doing, buddy?
I'm doing pretty good. It's been a while. We haven't talked in a long time.
No, we haven't.
It's because Caleb, he's not doing his live streams anymore. So that was usually where we interacted. Hi, nice to meet you, Amateur.
Hey, John. Call me Ben. Call me Ben.
Sounds good.
Ben, this is John. John, this is Ben.
It's nice to meet you. Oh, here we go.
Oh, here we go.
Hey, this is. I chose a different name for this stream, but this is Youth Resist on Twitter.
What's going on with him? You good, man?
Yeah, no, I saw this. I was on Discord with John. He mentioned that you guys were going live, and I thought, oh, that'll be nice. I'll join. But
I like the name.
Yeah, I don't. Thank you. Yeah, I had a 300 IQ Thomist on some of my YouTube videos, so I went with the 300 IQ theme for this one as well. But yeah, I've obviously talked to John before, but I don't think I've talked to JB or Amateur on here before. But what's up, guys?
Hey.
I've talked to you on Twitter. I haven't talked to you on here before.
Yeah, we have had some exchanges on there. And I don't think I've talked to Amateur much because I'm not as into like the biblical side of Twitter, because I'm not going to lie, I don't know anything about New Testament history at all.
Neither do I. I just fake it till I make it.
I want to see a comparison between John and Ben's bookshelves there, because both of them are rocking some pretty good little collections.
Yeah, I wish I could zoom in on John's there.
Most of them I haven't read, so it's not really that impressive. So
Yeah, I haven't learned to read yet either. So
basically,
most
I just like collecting them, just so that if I wanted to read them, I could theoretically. It just saves me a library trip, basically.
most of Ben's are actually in dead languages
Oh wow!
that he translates to English for fun.
Oh man.
He gets up every morning and writes a verse of the Bible in Hebrew or Greek on a dry erase board.
I do a lot. I've been reboning up on my Hebrew, so I've been going through some grammars from the very beginning. So alphabet and vowels and like the really easy stuff you learn like your first few weeks of Hebrew class.
So your hobby is basically like homework, constantly homework.
Yeah. Oh yeah. It's I'm a nerd. I own it. That's who I am.
That's cool.
See, it's kind of weird right now because like you've got Ben, who is huge on like the Bible stuff, and we've got Youth Resistor here that's 100% basically on the philosophy side. You've got John that dabbles in both, but seems to go more with the philosophy than with the Bible, whereas I dabble into both and seem to go more biblical than philosophical. So we've kind of got like
it's a good balance.
Perfectly balanced between all of us.
Yeah, I recall distinctly having some of my friends who would defend the argument from the resurrection historically, right? And since I knew nothing about New Testament history, I would just say that it was wrong for like esoteric philosophical reasons, right? That like God wouldn't reveal himself through history or whatever, because I genuinely knew nothing about the actual history where I could disprove it. And no, in that case, I just like cite somebody who I knew like had a good response to it. But yeah, no, like generally like coming across arguments that I knew were bad historically, but I couldn't figure out why has been a permanent struggle for me. And so I generally just defer to people who know more about it than I do. So
smart.
Yeah.
Although you've recently went from being a Christian to an atheist, correct?
Oh yeah.
Okay. You still holding steady to your atheism, or are you kind of working your way back?
Contrary to popular belief that has been spread about me on Twitter, I do not change my mind every 2 days about extremely important philosophical worldviews. So I am still an atheist. Yes.
It was Salem that was doing that. Salem's not there anymore to spread those rumors.
Yeah, no more slander from Salem. His reign of terror is over. I'm finally free.
Has anybody heard from him? John, have you talked to him?
Yeah, I talked to him. I think about like 2 weeks or so ago. He sometimes on Discord we'll chat with sort of the group. He's doing great. Like he's going to be starting Bible college at the end of the month in Florida.
In a week, yeah.
Yeah. And it's going to be pretty cool because like he's doing it in Florida. He's normally lives up with his family in Canada, so he's going to be like going out on his own for a while. So it's very exciting.
Do you know if you're able to say? Do you know where he's going to Bible college? I mean, I don't want you giving out the guy's personal info if he doesn't want it out there.
I think he probably told me, but I didn't remember.
Okay.
And he said on Twitter a while ago he was thinking about going to Word of Life, I think it was, or Word of God.
Yeah.
There's a few schools by that. And there's one in New York where I grew up, close to where I grew up. So I don't know if it's like a franchise, for lack of a better word.
So he's not going to like Answers in Genesis for college, right?
Yeah, no,
I don't think so.
Or what was it? No, because Kent Hovind's not in Pensacola anymore.
I remember. He's going to PragerU, so it's this online college.
Gotcha. That's a double whammy. He wouldn't. He's from Canada, so his right-wing Canadian would still be like left-leaning like American. So he definitely wouldn't fit in PragerU on any aspect.
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah, so I don't know. I mean, John knows me, Ben knows me. Youth Resist, I've talked to you a couple times. I have a very small YouTube channel. I don't really do these things. I don't do many night streams because I try to do stuff whenever my wife's not home, so that way I'm just kind of not taken away from family time. She's out of town tonight, so I figured, got a free night with nothing going on, so I'm going to try to see if we can't do a night stream and get a couple people in for a hangout. So there's really no topic, so anybody can feel free to do and say whatever they want to.
That could be dangerous there, GB.
Yeah,
Hey, I'll be
Chris, don't take that too literally. What are you saying?
You're giving me so much power.
I've got 78 subscribers, so if anything gets too bad off the rails, I can delete the video before YouTube ever sees it.
Didn't that happen on somebody's stream that like somebody joined and then started like streaming porn or something like that, and then they had to like I think that might have been SJ's stream or something.
All right, now I think Ben knows who he is. Ben's probably muted him on Twitter. A guy named Gavin. He's big on SJ's channels. He's from Australia. He's done a bunch of debates on Modern Day Debate. He did a stream on one channel, and they said supposedly, like, in the middle of the stream, he got up to go to walk out of the room and had like no pants on whenever he stood up, and his camera was just like like on his desktop and just.
So
like,
you're saying we're supposed to wear pants during these things?
No, but just stay seated.
I gotta stop my cam real quick, guys. I'll be right back.
But he's done a couple where like he did a debate with Skylar Fiction on Modern Day Debate, and he was in a library, and they were closing the library, and he was like, "I gotta go," and never powered off the computer. So like you can hear him like leaving the library and telling everybody bye and walking out of the building.
This isn't Praise I Am. That's not his name, right? Gavin's not Praise I Am, right?
No, it's like Gavin Hurlisman or something.
Oh yeah. I think he's New Zealander.
Yeah, he's from somewhere over there, New Zealand, Australia, that kind of area.
Kiwi land.
Yeah.
I can't remember who he was debating. I want to say he was debating Randolph Richardson. Is that his name? The Canadian atheist guy. I'm not a really big fan of his. The guy that'll argue against the Bible and literally say that he's never read the Bible in his life.
Oh, that's smart. Yeah. Wow.
The extremely Chad atheist move is to never read the Bible, so you don't even run the risk of being indoctrinated by its fairy tale propaganda.
The Bible, that was written like hundreds of years ago. I don't need to read that. I've got.
It is an insult to my intelligence to even look at the Bible. Whenever I see a Bible, I just throw it on the ground and run away very quickly.
Oh man.
Y'all are really offending Ben right now.
Wait, what? Are you kidding me? Have you heard some of the things I've said about atheists? And I'm an atheist. I mean, what? 1,000 miles wide and an inch deep. That's most atheism. At least that's what it feels like.
It's really impressive how a lot of the online atheist community is just falling apart. Like, there's so much infighting, right? And with a lot of people calling certain people out, like Matt Dillahunty has lost, it looks like, a significant amount of support.
Mm-hmm.
And like personally, from my point of view, I just find like I don't really like a lot of these people, but like when they're like calling each other out on like correct things, I'm like, okay, like I see where you're coming from, and it's glad to see a lot of the like toxicity in that community being kind of weeded out. So I'm not sure if they'll ever become philosophically sophisticated, but as long as it's just a better community, I would support that regardless. So yeah, it's just an interesting shift to see in like the past couple months.
Are you saying that the atheist community of Austin don't engage in philosophy?
Or biblical studies,
or charitable interpretation of their interlocutors.
Oh yeah. Oh boy.
Now I'll admit to anybody that asks me, I listen to Atheist Experience and Talk Heathen pretty regularly, but I treat them the same way I treated Skylar Fiction. It was an entertainment channel. It wasn't something I was going to learn the best positions of. You know what I mean? I mean, I watch crap TV sometimes because it's fun.
Yeah.
Because I'm trying to like Lego Masters.
Hey,
don't knock Joe Bluth.
Yeah,
leave him alone.
Will Arnett is a national treasure. You take that back. I haven't seen the latest episode, the one with the windmills, unless there's even one after that. But I've been catching up with this season.
I think there's one more after that. I watched the windmill one.
Oh, cool. Okay. I love it. It's got that sort of like cheesy reality TV show aspect to it, but I just love like seeing the creations that they make. It's fun.
I don't like this season as much as I did last season.
Yeah, there's some interesting, like I liked that hanging episode. That was kind of cool, where they
That was
build.
crazy.
Yeah, it's pretty fun. All right.
Anyway, we're nerding out on Lego.
Yeah.
But yeah,
Lego's fun.
I've not
Would you
seen
like
a
to see
single
my Lego
episode.
collection? You've got
Nerd
boards, I've got
alert.
minifigs.
Oh man.
Spartan's in the chat. He said he might join later. He's putting the babies to bed.
Oh, cool.
I told you,
Good.
all these people have got to have kids. I don't know what the problem is.
Well, my 5-year-old's in bed right now, and my 13-year-old does what she wants, so she's in her room listening to who knows, Korean pop music or something that she's into. I don't know. And my wife's with the dog, and she's probably watching a murder mystery or who knows, true crime. I can't watch that stuff. Oof.
My daughter's sitting 2 rooms over watching Avengers Endgame for probably the 150th time since it came out.
The dog is.
No, my daughter.
I thought you said your dogs. I thought
dog.
you just said you told me earlier your kids were in there. I was like, is the dog in there too?
My dog is a huge Robert Downey Jr. fan. He
I was gonna
loves
say.
Iron Man.
He cries at the end during the snap. Spoiler alert.
That's very sad. Yeah.
I'm about to drop out on here and log back in on my computer because I'm on my phone right now, and it's a lot more difficult.
Yeah.
So you're gonna see me leave, then join with the exact same username. So
Yeah, you're cool.
I'll be right back.
Dropping like flies. Who's next?
Spartan said his dog only likes DC movies.
That dog's got good taste. Well,
It depends on the DC movies. The latest
Yeah.
one.
Lego, are they Lego DC movies with Will Arnett?
it all comes back to Will.
He did do a perfect Batman voice for that Lego Batman.
He does. He's got the voice for it. Yeah, for sure. I'm Batman. Yeah.
Wait, is he back already?
There he is.
I was just seething about the fact that you guys said that DC movies aren't terrible because all of those movies are really bad except for the Lego Batman movie, which is unironically an amazing movie.
Oh,
I love that.
The Lego Batman movie is great.
The Christopher
Suicide
Nolan
Squad.
Batman movies are great. The first
No.
Suicide was awful, but I like the latest Suicide Squad movie.
Mm.
I haven't
Craig
seen
Reed.
that squad yet.
Craig Reed.
Craig Reed is in the chat. Get in here, Craig Reed.
I was actually a fan of Batman v Superman too, even though that's like
I love that. I love that.
Hey.
I've loved the first iteration of Justice League
Mhm.
before they did the Snyder Cut was terrible.
Oh,
The
yeah.
Snyder Cut was amazing. But I read the comics. Like I was
Yeah.
big into so I got some of the references, and other people just didn't get it because they never read the comics.
Yeah, I mean,
Okay.
like Batman v Superman was just cool, just having these two monumental sort of figures there together, and like I don't know,
It was fun. It was just fun watching
Yeah.
them wail on each other. I mean, that's just great.
yeah,
The redone Justice League was good because he made 3 movies into one. Okay.
Oh yeah. Well, exactly. Yeah.
I actually still haven't finished it. Like I was a big fan of Batman v Superman. I sort of lost my favor over it since the first Justice League movie, and then I finally got this other one, and like I'm watching it in parts. So like I'll watch it for like 45 minutes at a time, get too tired, and then go to bed, and then come back, and then
Yeah.
there's like 3 more
At
parts.
least
that I
he
have.
did. At least he did break it into chapters. Somewhat.
Yeah, that was cool.
Yeah. Exactly. Yeah. That was smart.
Craig asked how long the stream was for. I replied and said until we run out of people or topics. Spartan just said 12 more hours at least. So I guess I'm trying to catch up with Nathan Ortman right now on his on his streams. I can't sit through most of his streams because his streams just go for like 8 hours. I'm like, this is.
I mean, even
Oh, no.
for me, that like all pretty much YouTube content, I now listen at 2x speed. I still have to like really pick and choose between which of his streams I listen to.
Yeah, it's funny because he'll like have like a video that's responding to William Lane Craig on such and such topic, 16 hours. It's like, is there really that much to go into on like the Craig argument? Is it that bad?
His he did one recently, like responding to bad apologetics on morality. But he responded to a lot of different people. Like he responded to Frank Turek, he responded to SJ, and William Lane Craig. But he also like responded to T Jump. And T Jump sort of like a moral sort of theory. And so it was great. It was kind of getting a bunch of sort of different bad meta ethical theories out of the way.
I do want to ask, because I'm curious, since we got some philosophy people in here, and I'm sure Ben knows who William Lane Craig is. Did anybody in here watch Scott Clifton and William Lane Craig?
Oh, yep.
Yeah, that was a good one.
I talked to Scott after, and I saw the clip where Craig said that really cringy thing, but that's all that I saw.
Oh, I didn't find that cringy.
Really? Like the thing about if you were like face to face
Not
God, like.
Yeah, do you want to stand before God saying, I rejected the first premise?
Yeah. Well, when people started, so I didn't watch the debate immediately, but people started saying on Twitter, there's this part where William Lane Craig just basically, does that. And at first I was like, oh my gosh, this is horrible. Like, this is just terrible. Then I watched the debate. And then I thought to myself, now wait a minute. If you really believed that the person you're talking to, if they rejected God, would die and face God in judgment, why wouldn't you say something? It just, to me, it fit with Craig's worldview. I had no problem with it. Did not bother me as an atheist. I was okay with it.
Right.
No issue.
Plus, Scott and Cameron sort of coaxed it out of him, where like Craig was originally
exactly,
like,
yeah. He was very hesitant.
Hey,
yeah.
Craig,
no, say it.
Say the thing. No, at least it seemed sincere, right? It wasn't just like snarky, like gotcha moment. He seemed like sincere, like, how would you feel saying this thing? So even though like does seem a bit cringy, like at least there were good intentions behind it. And that's that I have with Craig actually. And so the fact that he didn't fall into that trap of being kind of dishonest, it was nice. But overall, it seemed, like I said, I haven't watched the whole thing, but it seemed to be a good conversation, right? And I talked to Scott after. He said that he enjoyed it. Like he said that he was like on edge the entire time because like
he seemed it,
Craig. But in the end, he said he was so glad that it was over so he could relax, but he also enjoyed it and got a lot out of it. But
I'll be right back in a second. I'm not going to close the stream. I'm just going to walk all the way for a second. I'm going to go put my kids to bed real quick. And I mean, they're 13 and 10, or 14 and 10, so it'll be.
We'll talk bad about you. Don't worry.
Well, I'm gonna have my earpiece in. It's wireless.
Oh,
shoot.
I have to go now.
I was getting ready to sort of like take over the stream somehow.
I was about to like get JB canceled.
Did you hear what JB said?
Uther's this. You're the youngest in the room, right?
Yes, that is true.
Okay, you're in charge.
Oh, let's go.
Wait, what?
Okay, so guys, you guys are permitted to use say anything about any group that you want to. There's no censorship here. Just do whatever you can to get JB in as much hot water as you can.
Oh boy, I've got so many curse words lined up.
Pine Creek is asking for a link, but since JB just left, I don't know if we'd like, even if we gave him the link, JB would still have to admit him.
Yeah, we have to wait.
So just wait for a bit, Doug, and then JB will let you in.
Well, I mean, like once Craig Reed is in, we're not going to have any topics aside from how Bernardo Kastrup is the second coming of Aristotle. So, like we try to change the topic. It's like, okay, have you read Kastrup's case for idealism? He totally like owns materialism. So,
is this whole stream about to go way over my head? I need to know this up front.
It depends, like how, like if we let Craig get off on some sort of tangent about
quantum mechanics or something like that, then it'll go over my head too. So like, oh, Craig, yeah, I guess you're right. I mean, I can't refute you.
Yeah,
so.
bro,
sure,
that's such a good argument. That's so true. Like, I really agree with you. Can we talk about something else now, please? Please change the topic.
Oh man. Oh boy.
All right. So, as a Bible nerd, Ben, what is your favorite book of the Bible?
Oh, Gospel of Mark. Easily.
Oh, okay, cool.
Yeah, it's my favorite. It's just it's one of the more underrated Gospels of the four. Like everyone's like, I love John or I love usually Matthew, but man, Mark is he's just a great storyteller, knows how to construct a narrative. I just enjoy him. And I also like the book of Job. I'm reading Edward Greenstein's translation of it that came out a couple years ago.
Mm-hmm.
And man, it is good. And his take on Job is he thinks Job is being completely defiant before God. And like all the way through, like the whole way through, even to the end. Like everyone interprets the ending as like Job's giving up, and he's just like, "You're right, I'm wrong." He's like, "No, Job is completely defiant before God." And he even at one point, Greenstein says something in the book about basically calling God a bully. He bullies him. And really, if you read like Job 38, when all of a sudden God appears in the whirlwind,
yeah.
I mean, excuse my language.
Where were you when I was like laying the foundations of the earth?
He's kind of being a dick, like he's like gird up your loins, Job. You're so old. Tell me about it. What are you? I mean, what a
That's interesting.
Right,
wouldn't that then be sort of like giving some credence, I guess, to Job's friends? I don't know, the way that I sort of read Job, it seems like all his friends are basically in the wrong because they're like trying to make all these points, but Job is like, no, I was righteous.
Yeah,
like
exactly. It. Yeah, no, that's his point. He's like, yeah, exactly. All his friends are like, you're being presumptuous of not God. Who are you, Job? And Job's like, no, I didn't do anything wrong. And even the author of Job establishes the point early on that Job did not sin with his mouth. And Greenstein's point is, Job's right. Job is right, and God is wrong. Job wants to have an attorney, as it were, to come before the deity, and God's not having it because God thinks he's better than him. He's just, look what I can do. It's really good.
Yeah, that is interesting.
That's not what inspiring philosophy said.
Yeah, if your interpretation is contrary to Michael Jones, then I'm gonna have to go off.
It's true.
I do want to take a second and say hello to Mr. Doug Pine Creek in the house.
Hey, hi JB. I know John a little bit.
Yeah.
I don't think I've ever talked to Amateur Exegete before, and I have no idea who the German is.
Oh, I am Youth Resist on Twitter. I don't think we've ever interacted, really, but I don't know. You might have seen my tweets a couple of times, but no, my Twitter account is not 300 IQ German Idealism Respecter. Just so you know. But
what is your Twitter account?
At Youth Resist.
It's got that character from Alice in Wonderland, the caterpillar.
Yeah, that.
The very snooty caterpillar.
Oh yeah. Oh no. Hang on.
Well, now it's
it's Sailor Moon, right?
Oh yeah.
Sailor Moon. All the Calvinists with anime profile pics. I decided to say, hey, we should do that, but for atheists.
What is up with that, by the way? Why?
They're just all raging schizophrenics. They're all insane. Don't pay attention to them. Don't listen to them.
What is it? The Hammers is what they call themselves?
What they do is they get these like incredibly deranged theological views and act like that you're just this crazy person. Like, what? You don't believe that the mind is physical, yet God is immaterial, or that God damns all people to hell, or it's just something insane, right? And then they're like, "What? You don't believe that? Damn, you're like a filthy rabid dog." Which is like
I used to be a Calvinist, so I agree. Like that's you don't believe that God is a moral monster? What?
Yeah, I do think it's a lot more entertaining, right? Like, I think it would be very interesting if I found like a devout Christian who accepted like that interpretation of Job and was like, "Yeah, God's evil, and God the suffer." Like, I would find that so interesting, and like, I swear there has to be somebody like that out there. But like, obviously, most Christians don't want to admit that because it's so obviously true and correct that like they just can't face the facts. But yeah. Oh, and Amateur, I wanted to ask you this, but I'm not sure if you're familiar with it. But are you acquainted with or familiar with David Bentley Hart's translation of the New Testament?
So no, I've not. Apart from the little bit I've read between like the exchanges, it was an exchange or maybe an analysis of his translation and N.T. Wright's translation.
I read that.
But I haven't really paid much attention to Hart at all. Maybe I should. I don't know. Is there something in particular he does that is funky? Because I can't remember.
Well, I mean, if we're talking about philosophy, I would like put all sorts of slander forth about him because I just think he's really wrong in all possible ways, like in that field. But in regards to New Testament history and things and stuff along those lines, from reading his translation, all that I can gather from it and what I've read from other people is that it just tends to be very literal, right? He tries to be as wooden as he can in translating the original writing. And I'm not sure exactly how that would compare to other translations of the text, but that's all I know that really sticks out about it, is that he just tries to be as absolutely faithful as he can to the words and not necessarily the meaning, if that makes sense, right?
Yeah, kind of like the New American Standard Bible does that sometimes,
right? And he says stuff like in John, something like the word was with the logos instead of was in logos instead of the word, right? Trying to be as exact as he can, even if the meaning can be obscure to people who are used to other translations. And so it's interesting to read. It's this kind of trippy almost experience reading through that when you're used to stuff like the KJV. But in terms of like actual scholarship, I'm not super familiar with how well it holds up. So
no, I'm not. I'll have to look at that. Maybe I'll do that sometime soon to kind of, get a feel for his translation, like what his philosophy is.
Yeah. Oh yeah. And what JB said is very true. We need to spend time owning John on being a theist.
Yeah, poor John.
Yeah,
poor
John. Me.
Hey John, you ever heard
of
a
Catholic, which is even worse, really.
Oh, that's the worst kind.
Oh yeah, fuck science. I forgot about that.
You hear a thing about evolution?
Well, as a Catholic, that shouldn't be too much of a worry, but so I've got you there at least.
It's over for me. I'm a Christian now.
I just want to know how you answered Doug's problem of evil question.
Oh, let's hear it.
Why would God create?
Yeah, good question. So since God is all good, he contains all goodness within himself. He has no need to create anything outside of himself, because then that would mean like there's something outside of it. But people can act in a way that is not necessary. So like people can be altruistic by doing something that's not for their own good, but for other people's goods. So in that same sort of way, God could have a reason to create, not for his own good, but for creatures' goods. That it's a good thing for people and creatures to exist. And so that would be a good thing to allow them to exist. So that would give God a reason to create creatures other than himself.
Lots of problems there.
Oh, is it? Oh, shoot. Okay, my laundry just went out. Figure out your problems. I'll be right back. Okay.
He's running, Doug. He's running.
I am running.
Story of my life.
Typical Christian.
You guys were mentioning William Lane Craig earlier. I popped on and I heard that. I don't know. To me, my respect for William Lane Craig went down when I heard that. Just not because he's not sincere or anything like that, but because he doesn't have the fact that he even had to stop himself shows that that's immediately where his thoughts go. His thoughts are going not so much about the arguments, but Pascal's wager. There's so much at stake. And the arguments for God's existence or whatever is secondary. It's just, no, I know God exists because of the inner testimony of the Holy Spirit. Now let's come up with arguments to show other people why you can believe in something without feeling stupid.
Well, it's his friend Sarah from middle school is the reason he's a Christian, right? Isn't that what he always said?
Oh, that smile, that lovely smile.
But I didn't see it. To me, I saw it as a position of William Lane Craig was kind of where he had no more arguments at that point to try to do any gotchas on Scott. That he was kind of like, well, this is the only thing I've got left in the tank.
Yeah, it was down to appeals to intuition or emotion. It's like it doesn't. My intuitions say that anything that's created is created by prior stuff, says Scott Clifton. And everything within William Lane Craig, I think, agrees with that, but he'll special plead, well, you're right, except for when God made the universe.
Wait, created by prior stuff or out of prior stuff?
Out of prior stuff.
Okay.
So it was brilliant of Scott Clifton to come up with that parody-type syllogism, because the same three arguments that William Lane Craig uses to defend the first premise of the Kalam, you can use to defend the first premise everything that begins to exist begins to exist using prior stuff. Concrete, anything that begins to exist as concrete, like tables, chairs, universes. And it's very hard argument, I think, for theists to combat, because everything in your intuitions scream that's true, but you have to say as a theist, except for when it comes to the universe, if you believe God created the universe ex nihilo. I gotta close my door. Just hang on a second.
I'd like to hear Youth Resist actually chime in on this, since he's the most philosophical person in the room. What do you take for the Quran? Like, where do you rank the premises in it?
So,
and how do you view them?
No, I appreciate that you call me the most philosophical in the room, just so John knows I'm better than philosophy. It's over, John. There's no competition. I've been declared by JB to be philosophically superior, but
your 300 IQ just completely overpowers.
But no, yeah. So I think, so obviously, my objection here is going to depend on whether Scott holds his alternate principle to be something that he actively believes, or rather as a sort of alternative to William Lane Craig's argument, right? And he sort of holds it in agnosticism. But I think the argument that I could bring up against his causal principle, if he holds it to be true, is that assuming that Craig's principle is true and assuming that his principle is true, what difference would we see in the material world or the material universe, right? So assuming that what Craig says is true versus what Clifton says is true, or maybe some other causal premise, we would see or interact with the same stuff in material reality, right? The same general ways causes play out, way effects interact with their causes, and things of that nature, right? So ultimately, we're not going to encounter, right, at least in our empirical experience, a difference that is entailed by Clifton's causal principle versus Craig's. And so in that case, right, it's hard for him to kind of make a positive case for his causal principle if it will entail the same thing as Craig's will, at least in our empirical experience. And so ultimately, I think the best he could do is he could actually use that argument as also a argument against Craig's positive belief in his causal principle, right? What I'm putting forth as a case would refute both Craig's and Clifton's causal principles as an active belief, and it would kind of leave you in a sort of epistemic agnosticism around the issue. And so it would be enough for Clifton to take down Craig, but assuming Clifton is actually positively defending his case, it might pose problems for him too. And so I actually talked to him about this in a VC on Discord, but it ended up getting sidetracked with another conversation. We weren't really able to go deep into it, but yeah, I think that would just be my general.
What do you think Scott Clifton's causal principle is?
That I might not be articulating it perfectly, but
anything with an efficient cause must have a material cause.
Material, yeah.
Yeah, that there's no sort of efficient causality without some sort of prior existing stuff that participates in
one
this
exception, though, right?
Well, I'm not.
Doesn't Scott Clifton have one exception to that causal principle?
The universe itself, right?
The universe itself.
Well,
yeah.
I'm not sure Scott would have an exception to that.
He would deny that the universe has an efficient cause.
Right, he doesn't believe that it's created.
Right.
Which did Craig not seem to understand that? He seemed to argue against Clifton's points as if that wasn't what Clifton.
Craig,
it was very odd.
Times was saying that Scott was like holding to a position that the universe came from nothing, which is like after Scott corrected him multiple times, and he was still like, and I think Scott or Craig is wanting to say that if it's a tensed fact that the universe has a beginning, then it must be the case that the universe has a cause,
right?
Something like that.
The two premises condensed into one, really, for Craig.
Mm-hmm.
When it came to him looking at Scott's syllogism, but when he looks at his own, it's two separate premises.
Mm-hmm.
And I can understand why Craig does that, because I'm the same way. I'm an A theory type of time. I'm very sequential, linear thinking. If something begins, then there was a time it wasn't there.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's coming from nothing. That's what William Lane Craig was saying. And so I get that, but that's not what Scott was saying. He's just saying the beginning for the universe is just sort of like a piece of paper, and you're starting on the left edge of the piece of paper, and that's it.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
which is really hard, I think, for most people. I think the majority of people, it's hard for them to conceptualize it that way.
To sort of defend Scott, I don't think you have to be a B theorist in order to hold to this position. Like you could just think that there's a necessary initial starting point to the universe. Like the very first moment of the universe is just something that exists in all possible worlds. It's in all metaphysically possible worlds, not in all logically possible worlds. And then just from that, everything just sort of naturally follows from that, even though a theory is true for some reason, or like you have actual tensed facts.
Holding that the universe exists as a sort of eternally existing, timeless block, I think does make more sense with the idea that it's uncaused. Because we get into some sort of, how do I say this, like conceptually obfuscated territory when we talk about the universe having a first moment, right? And then we could say, oh, the universe has always existed because it's existed for all time. Well, it's like, right, but it has a starting point. And so you get into some issues about causality relating to temporality, events, where it just gets kind of, I'm not sure if we would have epistemic access to really discern something with any level of certainty regarding whether the universe has a cause or not based on this like tense theory of time. And
The
so,
Bible.
Yeah, Scott just needs to read the Bible in order to see the clam there, and then he can become a theist.
Well, I mean, of course, but as an atheist, he is suppressing the truth and righteousness. So we can't expect his depraved, reprobate heart to understand the glories of God's kingdom.
Very true. Yeah.
But you know what? I'm the type of guy who I'll just give people, if they want to believe a creator created the universe, have it. It doesn't mean much.
It's very generous.
Like it doesn't mean that this creator has the power or the desire to raise a person from the dead 2,000 years ago.
Right.
Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah.
Yeah, John. So what's your best argument for the resurrection?
Oh man.
I want to get back to the problem of evil.
All right, that one
He ran away to get his laundry.
Well, we have to prevent amateur taking over the conversation about history for a little bit longer by holding out the philosophical discourse.
Me not smart, me dumb on philosophy.
We just want Ben to sit there twiddling his thumbs, and then we can get to the Bible.
I love philosophy. I just hate philosophers.
When we get done with the problem of evil,
So
Ben,
true.
when we get done with the problem of evil, Ben, I would like for you to start at Matthew 1:1 and just read the Greek for us. Let's see how long we can go.
Done and done.
Bye. Okay, so John, does God, does he like just the tiniest bit of sin?
Does he like it when people sin?
No, does he like the idea of sin? Just a little bit of sin. Does he like that concept of sin?
Like, does he want to instantiate any instances of people sinning?
Does he want it? Does he like it? Does he desire sin? Use
No.
any word? No.
Yeah.
Does he create things he doesn't like?
No. Yeah, the only things that exist are things that are good.
Okay, so he doesn't create things he doesn't like. He doesn't like sin.
Right.
Does he know the future with certainty?
Let's see. Well, that will depend upon your theory of time. I'll say yes because I think God.
Let me put it a different way.
No, I'll go ahead and say yes because I think that God exists outside of time.
Okay, so he only creates what he wants to create. He doesn't like sin, but he knew that sin would result if he created. You don't see a problem with that?
Well, so long as God was not the determination of sin occurring, I don't see a problem with it.
Could God have determined no sin?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, he could have created a world with like only
no
in it.
Forget about creating. He could have chosen not to create, yes?
Yeah.
That would guarantee no sin, correct?
Yeah. Same for the world with only geckos in it. Would also guarantee no sin.
So he could have guaranteed the thing he doesn't like by not creating.
Yes.
But he created anyhow, knowing with certainty. He wasn't surprised that his creation ended up resulting in something he hates.
Right. Yeah, because he loves creatures more than he hates sin, I think. Yeah.
Okay. Are you a universalist?
No. I mean, you could be a hopeful universalist, but
Okay.
I don't find it that plausible.
Okay, so you got two worlds. The world with God alone. Can you get better than that? God alone.
Like God, you can't be greater than God as the greatest conceivable
Can a
being.
world be greater than God? With
A
God alone.
world.
Two worlds. One world God alone. One world with God plus other stuff.
Well, the one with other stuff would still have God in it, so it would be
Right.
the same amount of like goodness, whatever God is as an infinitely great being. That would also be in the world with God as an infinitely great being, and then other stuff as well too. So
And
there
other
would be
stuff
no
that he
difference.
doesn't like.
There would be no difference between the worlds in regards to like both worlds contain a greatest of all possible.
Name your
beings.
favorite dessert.
I like tapioca pudding. Just
Okay, tell me what's
something-
better. Tapioca,
Okay, yeah.
Tapioca.
pudding. Tapioca pudding. What's better, that or tapioca pudding with dirt in it?
The dirtless tapioca pudding.
Okay. What's better, a world meaning just Yahweh himself, or Yahweh plus other stuff, including sin, suffering, and death?
Yeah, so it would be like better in regards to what? Like better for God, it would still be the same because God has himself as an end in both
No, better for
worlds.
you.
Better for me, it would be better that I exist in the world where
Really?
I exist with him. Yeah, it would be better. Like in a world where I don't exist, that would not be a very good world.
What if it's true you're ending up going to hell? Is it still better for you to exist?
It would be better if I had chosen not to go to hell, but it would still
Yeah,
be.
that wasn't
good.
my question. If it were
Yeah.
true that
Yeah.
you're going to hell, is it better for you to have existed or not exist?
I think it would still be, to some degree, good that I exist even in hell.
Really?
Yeah,
Why is
because
that?
you still have some benefits of existing, and like you're able to attain some aspects of your desires. Just the fact that you exist is a good in some of itself.
Oh, so hell's not really that bad then, because you can get your
Well, it's-
desires there.
Like you can achieve some natural desires, I think, but no, like none of your like ultimate ends. Like if you're the way to perfect happiness is to be in the presence of God willingly, then hell would be like blocking you off from that sort of ultimate desire, but it would still be some good in the fact that you're existing and you're able to experience.
I think you're the
like,
first
some
Christian
things.
who's ever said that to me, that there's some good in hell.
Yeah, I mean,
For you
there's-
personally, I think some people say because of justice, and for other people, God, Hitler deserves it. But you're saying for you, if you go to hell, there's some good for you in hell.
Yeah, I think any Catholic is going to have to be committed to this position because they think that for anything that exists, it's going to be good that it exists. That's the only reason that the only reason, for something to exist is for it to have at least some good.
So does it ever make sense to want to die?
Yeah, I think so. Like if you're in a serious amount of pain, you can have reasons to want to not be in that pain.
So if you like wanted to die when you were in hell and you wanted to stop existing, would it still be good that you're in hell?
It would still be good in the sense that like you exist and you're able to achieve some goods of existing, even though if it's not your ultimate desire that you have. In the same sort of way that like I might want to have tapioca pudding right now, but I don't have access to it. But I can still have other things that I just desire less that I can have.
When you think of hell, what do you think of?
I think of like a sort of habituation towards things that are not for our own benefit. So in the sense that like if I put tapioca pudding as sort of my ultimate end, and I only think about that, I only want tapioca pudding, then that's going to harm me in certain ways because there are, for one, nutritional goods that are there in things other than tapioca pudding. So if I was to only eat tapioca pudding, that could harm my body in certain ways. And so like I think hell is a sort of inclination away from God as the ultimate good and rather towards certain material things as your ultimate desire of what you want.
But is there pain in hell?
Yeah, I'd imagine it would be sort of like a psychological pain where like because you're not getting what you want, it's that sort of frustration.
I thought you said hell was getting what you want, but
Well,
just that wrong
it's
thing.
fixating your desires upon something that is not for your ultimate good. And so What was that, Chris?
I was just going to say that it's sort of a perversion of man's final cause, right? We're able to fulfill some of our desires, but not reach or actualize our ultimate good. So, yeah, I mean, if you hold to a sort of a misfiring of the faculties to a degree under some sort of Catholic theology, then I think that's compatible with meeting some of your desires, but still failing to actualize your ultimate good, which is to glorify and be united with God through theosis. There, John, I just put your point better than you ever could.
Yeah,
I guess
thanks, Chris.
Sounds
300 IQ.
But I'm still confused on you. Hell is a place where you get your desires, but there's also suffering and pain there, right? Yes.
Yeah.
And you rather exist.
Well, hold on.
suffering and pain than
I was
not
saying
exist
that
at all?
like hell is a sort of fixation of your desires upon something that is not for your ultimate good.
Okay. So would you rather exist in a situation where you're in pain, suffering, and desiring something that's not for your ultimate good, or not exist at all?
I might rather to not exist at all, but that might be an irrational desire. I'm not sure.
See, there it is. Now, why do you think you wouldn't want to exist at all?
Well, because I don't enjoy being in pain.
Yeah. And God doesn't enjoy sin either, right?
Right.
I guess when I'm thinking about this, like I'm thinking about hell as a group of really frustrated and unhappy people.
Yeah.
Why are we keeping them around? Like, why are they just there sitting in an unhappy pile?
Yeah, and that's fair. I don't know if you're familiar with Jean-Paul Sartre's play No Exit. I think it's a pretty interesting sort of like take on hell as just a sort of place where people prefer bickering with each other for all of eternity.
They enjoy that now.
Do that?
Yeah.
Like,
yeah, Twitter exists, and people
This is-
willingly go on Twitter.
This is
yeah,
so
but not for
interesting.
an eternity.
This is so interesting to me. Do you believe, John, that God wants people in hell?
No, I think he
I'm not a Calvinist, so no.
Yeah, I think God wants that everyone should enter into theosis with him.
Do you think God, if he had a choice between someone existing and being in hell and not existing, what do you think God would choose?
I would think that God would sustain their existence rather than allowing them to be annihilated.
So you think God would rather have someone exist and in hell rather than not exist at all?
I think at least if somebody exists in hell, there's a possibility that they could be saved in a sort of sense, but it wouldn't be from their own doing. It would have to have been from some sort of intervention.
By
God, I think, or by saints, or
Mary.
So whoa.
yeah, Mary.
So you're saying hell's not permanent. You can go back and forth?
Possibly. It's something that is not really part of the tradition, but I was reading from Thomas Aquinas the other day that he was saying that the people in hell don't have the ability to repent, but it is still appropriate to pray that God would supernaturally intervene and end their suffering. And so it's something that at least somebody can hope for or pray for without having any sort of certainty that it will occur.
Oh, wait.
Like,
They're in. I may have misheard you. They're in hell, and they can hope for it.
No. The people that aren't in hell, like we can still pray that.
Intercessory. Okay.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. Thank you.
But if that is in fact a possibility that God could end the suffering of people in hell, why would he delay? Like, isn't delaying that just like pointless suffering or gratuitous suffering?
If the people chose to be in hell, which I think is going to be part of sort of any sort of notion of hell, that people took on some sort of mortal sin through voluntary choice, and then that put them into hell. I think that there might be a sort of appropriateness, I guess, to some amount of suffering rather than it being gratuitous. Like the fact that you do something that is bad for you, the fact that you receive the consequences of those things that are bad for you is somewhat appropriate. Or, yeah, it would be appropriate.
So this seems to kind of mirror universalism insofar as people will experience, right, there's some sort of punishment for deeds done on earth and right a rejection of God, but ultimately people are saved. So how would you?
I didn't say ultimately they will be saved. It's
Sure,
just
but
at least
but there seems to be a bit of a
it's a possibility. I think
parity
like,
there between the two.
I think if you hold to omnipotence, then I think you're going to have to say, yeah, sure, it's a possibility that all could be saved, but it's not a certainty in any sort of sense.
But it's up to God if even people in hell are saved. Yes. So every person who's in hell today is because of what God did not do.
No, it would be because of what they did through their free choice.
No, but you said God could save them out of hell and bring them back to heaven. Yes.
Yeah, I think from God's omnipotence, that is a possibility that could take place.
Yeah. So if that's true, then every person in hell, either past, present, or future, is in hell because of what God didn't do. It's all on God.
No, it'd be
because he could have saved them, but chose not to.
Yeah, but he's not. Well, let's see. If somebody commits a sort of mortal sin and then is unrepentant for it, then they would go to hell, and their going to hell would be something that they did through their own choice, and God permits their choice to be efficacious. And then from that, God could theoretically save them. But I don't know if that would be in line with God's justice to just save them willy-nilly for... because that's the thing. You have to understand hell as a sort of justice that is taking place.
But there would be no need for justice if he never created in the first place.
Yeah, if he didn't create anything, then there would be no hell. So yes.
There'd be no need. There'd be no sin, no suffering, no pain, no evil.
Yeah.
No.
So there would also be
redemption.
There would be no living creatures. There would be nothing else.
But there would be a perfect triune God.
Yes, and there would still be that perfect triune God in any world.
With no needs, no desires, and just perfectly content.
Yeah, so that perfect contention is going to be in place in all worlds. So God being alone doesn't change the fact that...
Are you sure?
Yeah. Because if God's like his own sustainer of his happiness, then the fact that God exists is going to entail that God is happy. In a sort of perfect bliss sort of sense. And so that's going to be the place, it's going to be the case in every single world.
But then you have to say that God's content with sin existing.
Yeah, he's content with sin existing, but he knows that sin is not for our own good. And so he has a sort of rational understanding that for sin to exist is not a good thing.
So he hates sin, but he's content with it existing.
He's content in himself. Yeah, I get... Let me see how to sort of word this and understand it appropriately. So God hates sin in that he knows that it is bad for creatures to sin. And he wants the good for all creatures, so he wants them to not sin. But the fact that people sin does not diminish him in his happiness at all.
He's not sad when you disobey him?
No, God's going to be eternally happy and blissful no matter.
He's not disappointed.
Do. Yeah, he'd be disappointed in that, but that doesn't mean that he's like sad.
It's still negative. Disappointment's a negative thing, right? It's not a positive thing. He's disappointed in you. He looks at you, John, when you sin, and he says, "Shame on you, John. You disappoint me."
I mean.
Is it meta? Do you think it's the case that in some possible world, everything that God wants, for example, right, humans not to sin, none of that comes to pass, right? And yet God is still perfectly content?
Are you asking me?
Yeah.
Okay. Everything that God wants doesn't come to pass? I don't know. It seems like I think that would entail that like God is not omnipotent or something like that. Like if God tries to create a world and then fails at it.
Well, I mean, if God creates, maybe I rephrase that. Not everything that God desires to come to pass fails, right? For example,
God's things.
God's right. Humans are in constant utter depravity, right? Something like that, right? That a majority of what God wants or cognizes as the good does not come to pass. Would God be equally as content as if it all came to pass?
Yeah, I think so. Like,
I mean, God's impassibility, doesn't that imply that he's just always blissful no matter what? Like, no conditions?
Yeah, I think so. And like I think that that's sort of like a lot of neoclassical theists are like perfectly willing to sort of throw that out when they're talking about models of God. But I think if like we're supposed to understand God as sort of like the perfection of like what we all want to attain and be in a constant state with. If God is the good itself, then it seems to entail a sort of impassibility. Like otherwise, like you go to heaven and then God's like real mopey about the fact that Chris is in hell burning for eternity. And
I mean, if he loves him, why wouldn't he be?
Don't you agree that a proper ordering of the passions and the emotions towards sin and virtue is in and of itself a good?
So I think it would definitely be a good for creatures. I don't know if it would necessarily be a good for God, though.
How so?
Would the world be a better place if I was impassible and I was blissful no matter what happened to the people around me?
It would depend upon if you still had the ability to rationally correspond to like what your duties are and things like that. Yeah, I think it could be because like when you're passible, then that means that your actions can sort of be overtaken by your passion. So like if somebody slaps you, that'll like sort of can revert you back to your animalistic brain, and then you might punch them back, even if the person that slapped you was a woman. And so that would not be a very good thing. So that's a sense in which passibility would be a bad thing.
That's a double-edged sword, right? Because someone might slap me in the face and I might react in a bad way, but I also might see like a starving child and I might react in a good way because of my animalistic
Yeah, but you
nature.
could still react in a good way without being moved through compassion for them. Like you could just recognize that, oh, the starving child needs food, and so my having food gives me a reason to give them food without me having any sort of like, oh, it hurts my heart to see this starving child.
Yeah, I guess it just kind of flies in the face of like the idea of like being compassionate or I don't know if having emotions is actually, well, I guess maybe. So does God have emotions? Like blissful, is that an emotion that he's feeling, or is he emotionless?
I think it's a sort of phenomenology, but not necessarily an emotion.
Yeah, I guess it would depend upon like what we mean by emotion, because like
Jesus wept.
Well, yeah, definitely. Jesus in his human nature certainly wept. I don't know if we want to say that God in his divine nature wept in any sort of real sense.
I wanted to say it. I think that sounds really cool.
The reason why I ask is because it sounds a bit difficult to say that like God is the goal that we're striving for, and he's impassible, yet he made us with these emotions and we can't help but have them. Like I couldn't even be like that if I wanted to. Like it's an unachievable goal for me to be impassible, but that is the goal.
Yeah. So I'm so add, you can go ahead first.
Well, I'm just curious of like you. So are you saying that like being impassible is not a good thing for us? So why should God's being impassible like?
Well, I initially I thought that it was bad for us, but maybe you're right. Maybe we could just be super rational and it would be good.
It is good. I'm dead inside.
But yeah, exactly. I mean,
that's also so convenient when you don't have to these like pulling at your heartstrings when you like watch Schindler's List.
If I was just like a robot, things would be so much easier.
When I hug my wife, I go like this. I count in my head 1, 2. And then one day when I got to 10, I said it out loud without knowing. She's like, "What are you doing? You're counting while you hug me?"
Because I love you.
Yeah,
I counted to 10 for you.
10 seconds.
Resort to pretending to have emotion.
Yeah, but like, so another issue that could come up is assuming. Well, that would seem to assume a sort of rationalistic moral epistemology, right? That we can be like morally perfect, yet lack sort of passion, right? We could be perfectly rational in our moral behaviors and agency. And so that could also run you into an issue, right? If you hold that our passions are an aspect of our moral epistemology, and that our moral reasoning is separate from our logical reasoning, right? And so to kind of remove these capacities from God could lead you into some trouble regarding his moral agency. But similar to what Ryan said, I also had the issue of, well, I mean, it does seem, well, I mean, you would acknowledge that it is good to have a correctly ordered passions and affections towards moral decisions, right? For example, when we see somebody being raped, we think that's awful, right? That's good. No, fuck, that's bad. That's degenerate, correct? And we see something good, we're like, okay, this is good. This is what God wants. This is what we desire, right? And so to say that for God to feel these things or to have these passions, this would not be a good, right? That for God to not have these correctly ordered passions and affections towards virtue and sin, right? This isn't something that God has, right? And I know earlier you said that it's because it's a good for human creatures, but not
right. So it might be good for human creatures because humans are innately like self-interested or something like that, and so them having these sort of passions sort of tugging at their heartstrings, it hurts me when I see this kitten being hurt or something like that. That compels me to save the kitten out of my own like self-interest of like, I don't want to feel this being hurt like this. Whereas God, he wouldn't require that sort of first pain in order to do the good. He can do the good without that. And so maybe that's a sort of sense in which like it would be better for creatures to have properly ordered passions, whereas it wouldn't necessarily be good for God because he just doesn't need that.
I don't think self-interest is intrinsic to properly ordered passions, though. Right? If somebody has a properly ordered passion, which would be anger or rage towards vile sin, right? And they thought, oh, I need to stop this sin because, like, I recognize it's pure evil and affront to God, and they feel rage in sort of correspondence with that. I don't see how that would necessarily reflect self-interest. I think that the ordering of the passions could be perfectly in tandem with a sort of intrinsic desire to do good in line with God's will. And right, so I'm not sure how that argument would get by the fact that it would seem reasonable or it would seem necessary for God to also possess the virtue of rightly ordered passions to sin and virtue.
But all this is irrelevant to the first major point, which was, why would God create if he doesn't need to?
Right. Okay. So how did you sort of respond to the idea that God is altruistic and doesn't act of his own need, but rather for the goods of others?
Okay. My response is he doesn't need to be altruistic. It doesn't make him better.
I think John.
And by creating, he only makes potentially worse state of affairs.
Well, John might be it almost sounded like you were kind of taking the position of like the average comes down. Like if we have just a universe with just God, then the average goodness in that universe is like the maximum because there's just good stuff. And then if you add a person, then that average goes down. But I think John was almost looking at it from like a totalist perspective where you have God plus you have a little bit of goodness from this guy and a little bit of goodness from that guy. So even if the average goes down, the total.
Yeah, but don't forget about the opposite of goodness.
Right.
Is also there.
Well, no, because the opposite of goodness would be a lack of being, and assuming John's Thomistic ontology.
No, I'm talking about
self is perfection.
Sin. People choosing to.
Is God's goal to make like the most amount of like happiness or something? Like, is that why he made it? Because he's altruistic and he wants to make the most happy people, and that
I'll speak for John here because I listened very intently to him, and he was saying you can't get better than God. You can't have this concept of altruism displayed towards creation. It's not going to make God better. It's only going to make things worse.
Well,
I
thought he was saying it would make the universe better.
No. He did not say that. John, correct, right?
To exist is good for the creatures that exist, but it doesn't improve God's goodness in any sort of sense by creating.
Doesn't help God one bit to create.
But it's still good.
Is the universe better after he creates?
I don't think that makes much sense because, like, for something to be better or worse seems like it requires some sort of frame of reference.
Yes, the frame of reference is the nature of God, and he hates sin.
Okay.
And so, he created knowing that it will certainly
So
result.
God hates sin, but the reason he hates sin is because he loves creatures. So the fact that sin exists, the fact that God hates sin is only in reference to the fact that he loves creatures. And so if he loves creatures, that would motivate him to create creatures.
I think it's weird that you will say that God loves creatures, but you're hesitant to say that the universe is better with creatures.
Well, because like that doesn't make much sense to me to say the universe, it's like better for the universe. Like the universe is sort of a unfeeling thing. I don't see how that makes much sense to say that.
Desires, it's ontologically intrinsic. So we don't really need this frame of reference on what it would be good for in order for it to be good.
Yeah, I mean, if creatures are good in and of themselves, just having more creatures is just more good, right?
It would be more good for the creatures, certainly, but I don't know if it's like more good for the universe.
If they're born with their skin reversed.
But I guess then that would kind of raise the question of like, why did God create if he doesn't care about like a total amount of goodness being like going up,
right? Like I think that it would be perfectly consistent with God's nature to create a world with only geckos in it. I'm just bringing up that example because I think that's a kind of interesting type of world.
Better what?
Like it would be perfectly consistent with God's nature to create a world with only geckos in it, because like God even has love for the geckos, that they exist.
Okay, we got now a third world with just Yahweh alone in 3 persons, a world with just geckos with I'm assuming you mean like a lizard that can't sin.
Yeah.
And then a world with humans that can sin.
Yeah.
Of those 3 worlds, out of those 2 other worlds, geckos, no sin, and humans with sin, which is better? Your intuitions, your opinion.
Since I'm a human being that can sin, I definitely would prefer the world in which I exist. Just because.
Okay, imagine that we are all looking in. We're outside of these worlds, and we have nothing, no skin in the game. We do not care about humans. We don't hate them. We don't love them. We're just looking as objective bystanders at God, a world of God, a world of geckos, and a world of humans that sin, which leads to pain, suffering, and potentially eternal damnation.
Mm-hmm.
And we're just looking, what do you think, John? Geckos or eternal damnation? Which world would you prefer?
Well, I think that like we tend to think that rational creatures have some sort of greater properties than non-rational creatures. And so we might want to prefer like even taking that sort of objective perspective.
You personally would.
Maybe you don't like rational creatures.
God, you're making it sound like God has no preference because they're all just equally good. Like there is no way to measure the goodness. So God can't like distinguish between them by one universe being better than the other because they're all equally good? Or
no, there's goods in each universe, and then God God has the capability of creating any of these universes, even if it's a minuscule amount of goodness, just because he loves those things within it. That would still be a good type of world. But like if we're wanting to say that, okay, rational creatures have some property that is a good that non-rational creatures don't have. And so if we're taking a sort of objective perspective, the fact that rational creatures exist that have the possibility of going sinning and going to hell is still, in a sense, a greater type of world than the world with just geckos in it, because geckos don't have the ability.
You seem very resistant to call that a better type of world earlier, but now it seems like you're completely happy.
Yeah, because we're comparing to a world with geckos instead of a world with just God. That's why he's okay with saying it's better.
I mean, they're both good worlds. I mean, it's just like if we're trying to think about what sorts of properties that these creatures have and what properties are better than other properties, then we can say, for the creatures, it's better that they're rational than that they're not rational. But I don't know if I am willing to buy into this, like tallying up the amount of goodness in the world to say which world is better.
See, and my intuitions are exact opposite of yours, John. Like I would say, let's pretend we have a world of sentient beings, rational beings, where 99.9999999% of them obey God. Just everything's great. They want to worship God. They love God. And just one person is either suffering, born with their skin reversed, and spend 10 years of life suffering and then die. And they curse God when they do it, when they die. In my opinion, it is better for God to have not created at all than create a world where 99.999% worship God, love God, because of the premise that God does not need it. He needs
That's
none of it.
surprising, because like if I were to ask you, let's take you back to the Big Bang, and you get to be the one that sort of presses the button or refrain from pressing the button.
Yeah, I would refrain.
You would refrain. Okay, interesting. Yeah.
Non-existence is better than existence that we have.
Interesting. Yeah. Very pessimistic.
No, when I say I'm entering your paradigm, when I say the existence we have, I mean the Christian worldview.
No, I was asking from your point of view. Like,
my point of view,
to push the button or not push the button.
If let's say a God does exist and he pushed the button right now to wipe us all out, I'm not going to say, "Oh, rats! I wanted to go see that movie next Friday." There would be nothing wrong with that. There would be no people saying, "Oh, I'm nervous because I know tomorrow we're going to be annihilated." It's just like, boom. Now, all the good flowers, sweet smelling flowers is gone. The tapioca pudding's gone. But so is every suffering gone as well.
Right. Okay. So in the example then where like you're taken back to the very the necessary initial state of the universe, where you're given that option of pressing the button or refraining from pressing the button, which do you choose?
Refrain. I would not, if I were God, I would not have created, because I don't need to. And I would not create something that I would know with perfect certainty would lead to something I hate. Why would you create something that you know will lead to something you hate? I can give so many different analogies as a parent. Like, what would you have a child if you knew with 100% certainty that this child would suffer greatly and then die? Would you create that child? Would you procreate or not? If you knew with 100% certainty, and you're never wrong.
Yeah, I mean, I guess you could like.
Let me ask you: Would you have that child or not?
Yes.
Well, I mean, everyone's going to suffer in some sense, no matter like anytime you're like making the decision.
I'm giving an example
that that child is necessarily going to suffer some.
I'm giving you an example of a child that, imagine the most atrocious suffering you can imagine here on planet Earth, and that's going to happen to your child, and you have the choice to bring this child in the world or not. Do you bring that child in the world?
I think you can exhibit better parental care by refraining from having that child in the world.
That's it, and that's exact perspective where I'm coming from with creation of the universe.
And
but did you say yes, German IQ? Shame on you if you did.
Well, okay, so when you said the first thing, right? That,
first you were just saying any amount of suffering is a reason to prevent.
Please don't take this out of context on Twitter and say, "Hi, Youth Resist said that he wants his kid to suffer eternally" or something like that. But so when Doug initially said that, would you have a child if you knew that it would endure a great amount of suffering? I thought, okay, I would probably retort to some sort of intrinsic good to child rearing, something like that, some sort of Aristotelian ethical argument. But if you, but then he clarified and said like the greatest suffering imaginable.
Yeah.
And then I thought, okay, maybe not. But in general, I think that a decent amount of
it's a no-brainer, isn't it?
But like, at least for some amount of suffering, that seems like a reason. Like, despite the fact that anyone that comes to exist is going to undergo some amount of suffering, that still doesn't give parents like a reason. Like, oh, it's morally obligatory to prevent.
I agree with that. But what I am proposing though is a thought experiment that the worst possible suffering is the way God views sin. God hates sin, and I find very few theists who disagree with that.
Right, but the reason
and the concept of hell.
Why does God hate sin? That's the question that's important to ask.
Oh, from the Christian perspective, it's because it goes against his nature, and anything contrary to his nature is the definition of sin. It's the definition of bad.
It doesn't hurt God when we sin, though. It hurts us, and God loves us, and that's why He hates sin.
I think we are kind of talking past each other, because you notice when I talk about totaling the goodness of the universe, that's a very utilitarian thought. Yeah. And when Youth Resist talks about Aristotelian, it makes it virtue ethics.
Yeah. Virtue ethics. Ugh.
Yeah, and then John, I'm not sure where you're coming from, or where you think God is coming from. But if God has a completely different one, like a completely different moral framework. We might just be kind of looking at this from very different points of view.
Okay, so then I'll ask you, as a utilitarian, do you think that if you have the ability to create a world with 100 geckos or a world with 1,000,000 geckos, that you're like obligated to create the world with 1,000,000 geckos because there's more goods in it? Okay,
Yeah.
that just seems weird to me. I don't know. It seems having 100 geckos is.
I wouldn't say that.
I'm just a totalist, so I just look at the total utility, and if you have a 1,000,001, that's more utility, and so you just go with that one.
Okay, so would you hold as an option like a sort of theistic modal concretism?
Don't use those terms, Chris. Just ask a normal fucking question.
Why do you talk like that?
God actualizes every possible world.
You got to stop reading philosophy books. It's warping your brain. Start playing Minecraft.
I will never go outside
Like a
ever.
normal kid.
Okay. No, I get what you're asking, Chris. Okay, so like, let's imagine that God creates a world where with a near infinite amount of happiness and that's going on with it. Now imagine, well, God could create another universe which has that same amount, but -1, and then that's also good because it has all this good in it. And then you could also have another world that God creates with all that same amount -1. And then you have like all these possible worlds that have the maximal goodness, and then the next to maximal goodness, and then the next to maximal goodness, all the way down to us.
When you're talking about possible worlds, usually possible worlds means like all of reality. And when you're talking about adding another possible world to the current possible world,
well, like multiverses. Like a multiverse sort of thing.
Yeah, but one possible world would account for both multiverses, right?
Let's see. One,
like if two universes exist, that's one possible world, right?
Well, okay, so David Lewis is a modal concretist, which just means that all possible worlds are like actual worlds.
John.
I know. I was explaining what the term you were using is. So
he just thinks everything that's possible exists.
Yes.
Okay.
In sort of like a spatio-temporally disconnected way.
Yeah. Okay.
Like a multiverse.
But that's just so weird. That just sounds like a single possible universe. That's just one possible universe. But there's also another.
But they're causally closed from one another. Like what happens in this world cannot interact with the other world at all.
Yeah, but they're both part of reality.
Yeah, that's what he would say is like everything's part of reality. Like every possible combination of things is a real world.
Spartan is seething in the
except, but
yeah, I know.
Not really though, because like one possible reality is nothing exists, right? And that isn't actualized, right?
Well, that would be some world, I guess. Yeah, where nothing exists.
Well, no. But
okay,
that doesn't
concrete
exist.
objects.
There's only one reality that exists, and that is the one reality where all realities exist. Like,
maybe I wonder if he'd say that there's a contradiction and nothing exists. Some people I know say that. I don't know if Lewis would though.
But you see what I'm saying is like he's just talking about one possible world. Like whatever reality is, that is the actual.
Yeah, but no, because like
there's
contradiction. If we say that all of these are possible worlds, then you're going to have contradictions that take place where John both exists and does not exist. Because like there's going to be some other world where John does not exist, but in this world John does exist. So there's going to be different worlds.
Yeah, you just say two Johns exist. Like you just look at the grand total number of Johns that exist, and you just say that number exists. I'm doing a bad job of phrasing what I'm saying. But
we've got Christians in the chat wanting Doug to push you harder on the hell discussion.
Yeah, everyone, all the universe in the chat.
But giving the replies. John already said hell is good, so it's hard to listen to what he says. This man is angry, John. You're getting
I did want to ask Doug a question. I did want to ask Doug a question before we got into the health position on it.
Catholics are the most depressed minority.
Would universalism and or annihilationism fix that position that you have, Doug? Like, would it solve some of the problem?
Great question. I think, in my opinion, that universalism is the only hope Christians have to get out of this real problem of evil. However, it still doesn't get them entirely out because of all the suffering and evil here on planet Earth. And for a God who does not need anything, who's self-sufficient, who sees the future, could have avoided every rape, every tsunami killing thousands of people by just simply not creating. He's still on the hook. The buck stops at the top. He is responsible, and he chose to let it happen when he didn't need to have it happen. So universalism is a great start, but doesn't get you all the way there. But if you believe in hell, John Buck, like eternal conscious torment, really, really bad hell that that God himself said he doesn't want anybody to go to, you're done. I mean, you cannot get away from the problem of evil and believe in eternal conscious torment. You're just toast, because eternal is eternal. There's no way, especially if you believe that wide is the road to destruction and narrow is the gate to life. If you believe that is true, you're doubly toast. You can't even take the utilitarian, the pragmatic approach of Brian and say, okay, let's add up how many people go to heaven, add up how many people. You got to start believing that the vast majority of people go to heaven, even if you do believe in hell, just to make up for it. But then you're still believing in a moral monster who knows that if I create this person, Robert, and Robert's going to go to hell for eternity, and I'm going to choose not to save him. I don't know how that works, but this God is evil by his own standard of definition of evil.
So John, I'd agree if like God like elects people to hell just so that more people can arrive in heaven. That seems like kind of immoral, which I think Molinism somewhat commits people to. I haven't like talked to Molinists about this, but at least intuitively, it seems like God is a sort of utilitarian monster where he's like making these sorts of like, well, it's okay that Chris goes to hell just so that Pine Creek goes to heaven, and then Ryan also goes to heaven. That's a risk I'm willing to take as God to create this world.
Let me ask you a question, John.
This is the price I pay.
You said earlier in this that to you existence is a good. So would you consider, like I believe Caleb holds to annihilationism, would you hold annihilationism as worse than actual torture? Because at least in torture you are existing.
Yeah,
it's a negative existence, but it's an existence.
Yeah, to clarify Caleb's position, he doesn't think that souls cease to exist, only that souls cease to be conscious of their existence. And so they undergo some amount of suffering for the consequences of their sins, and then eventually basically fall asleep.
And they go to sleep forever.
Yeah, exactly.
You know, why
so they're not.
Can
you exist if you're not conscious?
Experience.
What was that, JB?
Do you exist if you're not conscious?
Yeah.
Wait, your amino acids exist, or what do you mean?
Is there anything that is like to be an unconscious human being? I think is how the question would be.
No.
Yeah, I don't think there's anything that it's like to be an unconscious human being, but there's still the possibility of there being something it's like to be them when they wake up, or if they wake up. If they're
not waking up, but you've already said they don't wake up for eternity. So there is, if it's unconscious for eternity, then there's nothing like it to be that. Then is that even being?
Yeah, but it's still the same creature or the same substance of the thing.
How is it different than a rock?
Why? Yeah, why
because
is
a rock isn't initially conscious?
Alan is a panpsychist. He believes that rocks are conscious, actually.
Shut up, Chris. Don't bring in panpsychism.
They are atheists, though.
Why would you torture unconscious people? Like, what's the point?
Well, no.
Butterflies are theists.
Chris, sorry, Caleb doesn't think that like you're undergoing a sort of unconscious torment for all of eternity. Okay. You undergo some amount of torment as sort of recompense for your sins, and then eventually fall asleep. Yeah, soul sleep. And he hates that term, but I mean it's applicable. Okay, now you were asking my opinion though, and I forgot what the exact question was. Oh, like that it's a good thing to exist, even if you're consciously suffering for eternity.
Cooking you again. Damn, this man. No.
Okay, yeah, we're gonna listen to the Protestant on like how annihilationism is.
You already answered this though, John. You said that I think you admitted at one point it's better not to exist. When I made it personal,
No, I said it would be preferable. I don't know if it would be actually better in the same sort of sense that like
in his
Dude.
reprobate mind would prefer to not exist because he's totally depraved. But ontologically, it is good to exist.
Why?
Well, I mean, if John holds to the Thomistic view, which I'm not sure if he does, then he'd hold that the good and existence are ontologically convertible. They're identical. They refer to the same thing.
By what? Just by definition?
Well, this gets into really elaborate philosophy, which I know Doug's going to see that if I get too deep into it. But
So
it's
just a guy sat in a chair smoking a cigar and said, "Yeah, existence is good."
Well, it's more so like, how do we understand evil? It's going to be contrary to something that is good. So like the fact that you take away my tapioca pudding is a bad thing because my having tapioca pudding is a good thing. So the fact that you take it away from me means that the evil act is sort of parasitic upon what is a good state of affairs.
Okay, I understood that. But we're, again, talking about God who has the choice to create or not. And he has no desires for tapioca pudding. I mean, he doesn't need it.
Yeah.
He's happy without it. You said he was content.
Yeah, he's happy without it, but he does know
So
that.
what would be the impetus for God to create? Why?
Yeah. So God knows that John would enjoy tapioca pudding if John were to exist and tapioca were to exist. And so that gives God a reason, but not a necessitating reason. Like God could still refrain. But still, it gives him a reason to create a world in which John.
Okay, for every reason to create a world, like for your enjoyment, how many reasons do you think there would be to not create? Like he hates sin, for example.
I don't know if that would be a good enough, because like again, the reason that God hates sin is because he loves creatures, and so like if a creature can experience some good, even though it sins, then that's still a reason to create the creature, because like he knows that. Well,
Yeah, I mean, doesn't this come down to what is the goal of God? Like, what is God's goal? Like, what is he trying to accomplish here?
Does God have goals?
Like I don't think so. I think that some neoclassical theists like do hold that God has goals of like to save the most amount of humans freely or something like that. Like it seems like that's what William Lane Craig's position is. I think
like
that
God bored and he needs to overcome something and
kind
he
of,
feels
But if you don't,
complete.
but if you don't have goals, then why do anything? Like, why not just do what Doug said and don't create?
Right. So like I said, God is perfectly content within himself, but still recognizes that it would be a good thing for creatures to exist. Not good for God because God's already good, but good for the creatures to exist.
Yeah, that's
so that gives
goal.
That gives him a reason.
About
but
creatures,
the empirical evidence is totally against that, John.
It's not good for creatures to exist?
Yes, the empirical evidence refutes what you just said. 90% of all the creatures that have ever lived on planet Earth are now extinct, and a lot of them died painful deaths.
Right, and that would be a bad thing because it would be better if they continued to exist, right?
What's that?
The fact that dodo birds are extinct is a bad thing because it would be better for those dodo birds to continue to exist.
Right, but so you're saying God created just so they will die.
That's assuming that it's good for dodo birds to exist.
But you're saying God created them in the first place just so they can go extinct?
Well, to experience reality with God is a sort of good thing that dodo birds could have. And so that would be a reason for God to create them, even though they will ultimately die and be extinct. Like the fact that something exists for a short amount of time doesn't mean that is, and then ceases to exist, doesn't mean that it's not a good thing to bring that thing to exist.
I don't think it's better to have loved and lost and never loved at all applies here, especially when we're talking about eternal life, eternal damnation. I don't think you can say, well,
I don't think dodo birds are like facing eternal damnation.
Well, then why create them? I mean,
because dodo birds are cool.
If a dodo bird's eaten alive, there's no heaven for them to look forward to compensate them for their suffering that they got.
Cool. If a dodo bird's eaten alive, there's no.
Chris, you have your speakers on.
For them to look forward to compensate them for their suffering.
Chris, you're listening to you're in the live stream. You don't need to listen to it on YouTube.
Oh fuck, no, because I want to dunk on you in the replies and be like, yeah, Math Pig, come in here and just like beat the fuck out of John, put him in his place. But
I'm waiting for the Universalists to come on here and like tear me a new one.
I want everybody to dunk on you, and I want everybody to come in here and rip you to shreds. I just want to watch as John the greatest.
Johnson, you might come
I'm
on
just
in a
like
little
digging
bit.
myself into this hole further and further.
I just find it weird that you say God has no goals, but then you say that like he cares about other creatures experiencing reality, because that sounds like a goal to me. Like God wants
A
creatures
desire.
to experience. Yeah, he has like a desire for me to experience reality, or the dodo birds or whatever.
I don't know if it's like an active desire, but it's just a sort of recognition that it would be good for Ryan to exist. It would be good for dodo birds to exist.
Yeah, but I don't think goals have to be desires. I think they could just be like a logical recognition that like we should do one thing. So
right. So I don't think,
goal.
I don't think then that God would have goals in that sort of sense, because like I said, I think it would be perfectly consistent with God's goodness to create a world with only 100 geckos in it versus creating a world with 1 million geckos, or a world with rational creatures and geckos in it.
Yeah,
I don't think that God has the goal to make this world rather than that gecko world. It's just sort of the way that God sort of
purely random.
It's over.
So that's where I think libertarian free will gets a little confusing for me, is because it seems like it's either purely random or he has some reason that kind of forced him, but there isn't some weird way you could have like a motivation without the forcing. I don't know.
So I think there's a sort of like the usage of the word random seems to imply no intentionality. Like when I flip a coin, I didn't intend for it to land on heads or tails. But if I'm like choosing between two good things, then there is going to be that sort of intentionality there. So it wouldn't be random.
Well, yeah, I guess I should say random within, like obviously you wouldn't pick a bad world, but random within all the good worlds. So the 100 gecko world and the 1 gecko world and the world we have right now, those would all be good worlds, and it would just be random amongst those since they're all compatible with
So saying that it's random though seems to imply that God like accidentally created the world that wasn't the gecko world. But
I guess I don't know. You're saying he purposely picked it, but but he did it with no preference whatsoever.
Yeah, I think so.
So God just mindlessly decided to create this world?
No, like I said, God understands the reasons that it would be good to create this world, and then creates this world. Even though God also has reasons to create the gecko world and did not create the gecko world.
What differentiated the two? Is there any causal factor that caused God to choose one over the other, or is it?
No, I don't think so.
Not one over the other.
Okay.
Yeah, it would just be like that's the thing for any sort of libertarian account, and like
that's why libertarianism is dominating here.
No. Any sort of like theist, I have no idea like how theological determinists like are real things, because like if you give up libertarianism, like I would just become an atheist at that point. It seems like obvious.
Well, come on, John.
For one, libertarianism seems to be implied given like the fact that people can morally fail at certain things, or like not morally fail, but actually like choose to do what they shouldn't do. And then from there, like it seems to like that's the way in which to sort of.
Do you think libertarian free will violates like whatever causal principle you hold to?
No. Okay, so I'll explain my causal principle. Where for anything that for anything that could be some way or another, there is some reason for that thing's existence. I don't know. That's a sort of weird way to sort of phrase it.
That if it's caused something not to exist, it is caused.
No, I'm just like for any contingent fact, there is some explanation for that contingent fact.
So just a basic PSR?
Yeah, but I wouldn't say the like strong version of the PSR that like if X could occur, no, there is some reason why X occurs over Y occurring or something like that. I don't like for any fact like that, there's going to be some necessitating reason. I think there's just going to be some explanation for its existence.
Is John trying to make the PSR even more complicated than it already is?
Yeah, it's like the PSR, but he's a man actually commits any of the metaphysically spooky aspects of it.
Right. Okay. So like I'll give an example. So I think that if you have some sort of radioactive material, then that radioactive material can emit some a particle decay, or it could have not emitted that particle decay. And both of those are like live options that could have taken place. But if the radioactive particle is decayed, there's going to be an explanation for that radioactive particle decay, and that's going to be in the unstable radioactive material itself. And so the explanation for this contingent factor is going to be in something that exists, which is the radioactive material. In the same sort of sense, if a person could do X or could do Y, there's going to be some explanation for their doing X, and that's going to be the fact that they exist and they chose to do X.
Yeah,
Man, Spartan does not like you tonight, John.
So whenever
Spartan and I we probably have a lot of disagreements. All right.
well,
he's a universalist, and you're not. And
He's a universalist. I don't know if
Or
he
a
holds to
hoping one.
libertarian free will at all.
He's a universalist Protestant, pretty much all the smart positions that John doesn't.
He's a Calvinist. Yeah.
Is he?
He's a
think
Calvinist universalist, so like the only coherent version of Calvinism.
Yeah, I think there's some like I don't know. Go ahead with what you were gonna say, Ryan.
Oh, I was just gonna. So we were talking about radioactive decay earlier.
Yeah.
And
Whenever
whenever I try to draw the causal chain, for like libertarian free will, I never can satisfy the libertarian free will person. Like no matter what I draw, they'll always object to it. Like A causing B, they'll say no, but it's not that.
Yeah. Okay, so let me show you.
Wait a minute. There's
my-
people here who think we have free will.
I do. Yeah, of course. What do you mean?
Oh.
You don't believe that?
T-Jump said we don't have free will, John.
Oh, well, if T-Jump said it,
Oh.
then I guess I'm going to have to...
Yes. The science of geology proves that we don't have free will.
John, you don't have free will.
Shoot.
Don't think about a pink elephant. See? You couldn't
Oh,
stop
John
yourself.
Buck. All right,
Oh,
John
wow, you
Buck's trying to
just-
share screen.
You just
No,
need
no.
free will. All right. So that's how... This is how I think about free will. And so, like, it's not complicated. You don't have to have, like, circular chains or anything like that. It's just...
Did you go to PowerPoint on free will?
Yes.
Why
Let
do
me
we
pull
ever
up my
get
PowerPoint.
John to talk about free will? This is the worst decision any of us have ever made.
Did we
Right.
really choose to discuss free will? That's what I want to know.
No, yeah, like if any of us have had free will and rational tendency, then we would have chosen to never talk about this.
Hey, just because you have free will sometimes doesn't mean that you get to employ it anytime. All right.
Do you
so
believe
that-
God has free will?
Yeah, of course.
Okay.
Uh,
If you would have said no, that might have helped your case against the problem of evil.
Yeah, because modal collapse theorist, John. That means that everything that happens has to happen.
Wait, did you say you think God has free will?
yeah, I do. Yeah, of course. I was just talking about how God could create a gecko world versus
don't-
God or creating our world.
That makes God culpable for every sin and suffering in the universe if he has free will. Right?
Well, like the fact that he allows it to occur, yeah.
No.
But
He doesn't just allow it. He created the universe that he knew with 100% certainty would lead to X, and X is what he hates.
He doesn't seem, I don't know, it almost sounds like he doesn't seem any more culpable than someone who like gives birth to a murderer.
Yeah.
No,
Hitler's
if you
mom
knew
is culpable for 6
someone
million
is
Jews
culpable
dying.
who gives birth to a murderer, who knows with 100% certainty that person will murder.
Well,
That
God,
parent is 100% culpable because they could have
Hmm.
prevented it by not procreating that murderer. This is the exact analogy to God. God is 100% to
Well, then,
blame
Yeah. Okay.
every
Well,
sin, suffering.
remember
evil
my
on
thought
planet Earth
experiment
as
where you
created.
go back to the Big Bang Theory and you push the button? That would mean that
Yeah.
you would be culpable for
Yes.
every bad event that occurs. That just
Yes.
seems really implausible to me.
Well, no,
Like,
but-
If you know the future with 100% certainty, yes, you are culpable.
I think Doug has a kind of a point here. I feel
Kind of
like
a point.
I think that
It's
the
a
most
slam dunk.
reasonable thing would be that wouldn't God like create all the people, but then anytime something horrible was about to happen, he would like intervene and prevent it. That way you get all the good things,
No,
but none of the bad
that's
things.
that's like a person with a knife stabbing people and saying, "Oh, I got the sutures and the band-aids and fixing it." No,
No,
just
no,
don't stab in
preventing
the
that
first
from
place.
happening in the first place. Yeah, like stopping the guy swinging the knife mid.
Don't create a guy with a knife in the first place.
Sure, but go ahead and create the people without the knives.
No, don't create people.
Just create the gecko world. Yeah.
Just create,
Don't even
just
create geckos.
the gecko world.
There's no need to create anything if you're God.
But
thing
then
is,
geckos are cool. Like, what's
But
wrong with
Not to
geckos,
God.
Doug?
God's the coolest.
That makes the issue even worse for John is that
Geckos
John
like
believes
being
that
around.
John doesn't believe that God just set the universe in motion or started the Big Bang. He believes that God continuously sustains everything in existence, right? So, for example, as somebody is being murdered and chopped into pieces, he believes that God is imbuing existence into this person as he tortures them and mutilates them, right? So you believe that God is continuously sustaining this person in being as they're torturing people, right? It's not just like he set things in motion. It's like, okay, I'm not culpable for
That's
this, right?
for morally sufficient reasons. That's what you don't get.
Chris,
Well,
I was just talking about how I'm digging my own hole, and now that you're helping me by like digging it for me and like throwing in all these extra philosophical
Now-
positions that I'm committed to.
Now, John, I wanted to ask you this because you're talking about God having free will. I asked this to some Calvinists one day, and I didn't really get a sufficient answer from them. So I'm curious how you take it. So you say God has free will. Now, the Bible clearly states that God does not change his mind, meaning that whatever God has from his nature, he can't change his mind about it. So everything that he's going to do is decided by his nature. It will never change. So he is bound by his nature. So how do you get that he has free will?
Okay, so I think natures don't bind us to any sort of like specific actions, because like I have a human nature, which means that like eating glass is not consistent with my nature, and so I'm not able to choose to eat glass. But eating a hamburger is consistent with my nature, and also eating tacos is consistent with my nature, and so I'm going to choose one of those things. In the same sort of sense, God, by his own nature, cannot create a world in which justice is not ultimately fulfilled, so he can only create a world in which justices are ultimately fulfilled.
Okay, I see where you're going, so let me get you there. God knows everything that's going to happen in the future, including his own decisions.
Yeah.
So he can no longer change his mind about any decision. So therefore, he can no longer choose anything other than what he has already decided he is going to choose.
Right. So I think that God exists outside of time. So there wouldn't be any sort of possibility for God to change his mind anyways. So it would just be God deciding to act at certain moments in time, and that action being something that God freely does. So like it would be something that God could have refrained from doing. But that's not like God changing his mind in order to like set off the Big Bang, and God changing his mind to like allow John to eat tapioca pudding at X and X date. There's no need to like include God changing his mind to say that God has free will. In the same sort of sense, like I don't need to say that I changed my mind in order to say that I have free will.
Okay, now I've got one more for you.
Okay.
All right, this isn't about God's free will. This is about man's free will. So you believe that we have libertarian free will. So
Yes.
at any point before the year 30 or 3380, however you want to date it, did a Roman citizen have the free will to kill Jesus before his crucifixion?
Well, I don't need to commit myself to like what particular instances are a free will, but let's say that yes, some particular Roman citizen could have refrained from contributing.
No, could have killed him. Could have killed him at like the age of 12 as opposed to the age of 30.
Like before the crucifixion.
Right.
Okay. Yeah.
It still would have led to redemption. The wages of sin is death. You just take Jesus out a few years earlier.
Yeah.
No, I'm done.
No, that's fine. I was just curious your take on it. I'm not gonna hound you like Doug did on the thing. I was just curious.
What? I hounded him. I was
right.
gentle.
I'm gonna push back on you guys now. I'm gonna
actually he ran away from you at first.
No.
I'm gonna make my case now for libertarian free will, and I want to see where you guys get
no,
off.
No, please, no, don't.
Hold on, wait.
For the record,
you
ask me my position on libertarian free will.
Yes.
Can Chris go ahead?
I lean no, but I'm open to the idea. But to me, it really doesn't even make sense of then it basically some of our choices are random.
Well then, okay, if your choice is intended by you to occur, would that mean it's random?
Whatever caused me to make that choice, yes, if it's free.
Okay, what if
it would
you
have
were
to
the
be a
cause of that
preceding,
choice?
antecedent reason to make that choice?
All right, well then that would be determinism then.
Yeah, that's where I lean.
Okay, but you were saying that like if we had libertarian freedom, it would be random. But I was saying that like if you chose to do something and you intended that for doing that thing, That doesn't seem random to me at all.
Why? What's causing that choice?
You.
Yeah, but what's causing you to make that choice?
Nothing.
Oh, it's ex nihilo.
Well, yeah, I mean,
Out of nothing. Why don't we see random events popping up everywhere then, if that's true? I
I'm
mean,
not talking about random events. I'm saying that you, as
Random
a thing that
choices.
exists, anyway, as a thing that exists, you produce some effect, and that effect is contingent. You
It's
could have produced
uncaused.
some other effect. No,
Everything
you're
that-
the cause.
no, but what caused me to make that cause?
Your parents. I mean, you didn't. No, they didn't cause you to make that cause because they don't. They're not like they're forcing your hand or anything like that. They just create you,
Alright,
and then
we'll
you.
talk to him
Get
about
plenty of
free will.
sleep, Shannon. Shannon Q asked, doesn't Doug sleep? But tell your loved one with the blonde hair that I take Matterschlopes, and then he'll know exactly what that means.
You only sleep if the theists sleep, right?
Yeah, I get Spidey's senses.
Yeah.
Oh, there's a theist alive on YouTube.
Yeah,
It's got to go
there's
there.
a live stream.
I think we need to give John some outs.
He's got the
Yeah.
bell clicked on every
No.
like. theist
Let me
I-
give you some outs. So, John,
No.
I want you to keep believing in God, okay?
All right, thank you.
Because I think it helps you. But get rid of this notion of a God that sees the future perfectly and is all powerful and set up a system of heaven and hell. Just wipe that clean from your
Mortal sin.
memory. Just if you need a concept of God to account for things like first cause, why we're here, why there's something rather than nothing, maybe you can throw in some justice in there that this God meddles in once in a while, protects people, punishes people. Get rid of all the eternal damnation stuff, though. I think you'd be much happier. You don't have to go delve into philosophy and
I like
all
philosophy.
these early church fathers to try to sit in a chair with a cigar and explain all these things away. You don't have to delve into Molinism and all this would it be, could be, will be. Just saying,
Yeah.
oh, this God is just basically a
Just suppress the truth and unrighteousness. That's all I needed.
view God as a little bit better than you know. And
Being Catholic is stressful, isn't it?
I mean, to a certain extent, it's like, oh man, there's all these things that I gotta commit myself to. But I mean, like, when all those things are generally true, it's not as stressful.
Well, but you have to be like stressed out about like the time that you go to confession, right? Like what about like the car wrecks on the way to confession? And
Well,
like
so long as you make an act of perfect contrition prior to confession, then you're at least you have that sort of like forgiveness of desire. But that's the thing is like, how do I know if it was a perfect contrition or not?
exactly. That sounds scary. There's a lot at stake there.
Yeah.
I'd be losing my hair over that.
what did you say? You're on your way to confession,
Yeah,
and
you get in a car wreck, and you.
Okay, why do you need to talk to a guy and confess your sins when you got God? You believe God can hear you, right?
Yes.
Why do you need the guy in between? Why the middleman?
Because God like works with creatures through creatures. The fact that
But you're a creature and God's God, so you're a creature. You talk to God and say, "I'm sorry." Why do you need a guy in a weird robe to tell you stuff?
Because the guy in the weird robe can also provide me with some advice and give me a bit more relief.
And I don't
okay, well, I'm not going to you to confession guy.
You come to me. You save 10%.
All right. Next time I'm in a state of mortal sin, I'll be sure to like DM Doug. Like, Doug, give me some help here.
I do understand that's cathartic to tell another human being the problems of your life and their sins or whatever. I get that, but a lot of these people are strangers to you,
you're
right?
so stressed out beforehand.
John,
Like
you've got somebody that likes you in the chat.
Hey, Salem, he's back. Well,
Wait,
at least,
Salem?
yeah, that's Salem.
Is that the Salem?
Just come back to being Protestant again, John. No,
Return.
Return to modernism.
Tradition, return to modernism.
No, yeah, I like being Catholic so far.
I'll give John credit because he hasn't been Catholic that long, and he's came in here and he has stood by what he's been doing, and he's
How long have you been
stood
Catholic?
by it.
Since Easter. So what is that? 4 months back?
What?
Yeah.
What happened? Like you were Protestant before?
I was right.
Go
ahead, Chris. You tell the story.
Okay, yeah, since I know in John's life far better than he does. He was in a state of having no idea anything about Christianity, didn't know who Jesus was, and then he's still in that state. He's just so confused that he thinks he believes it. So thank you, John, for letting me summarize your.
I mean, that was
awesome.
Okay, I got to ask this, John. I have to ask this.
Yeah.
You said you became Catholic around Easter?
Yeah. Well, that's.
Do you have a girlfriend right now?
No, unfortunately.
No, of course not. Look at the man.
look at all these books, Doug. What do you think?
Because I thought you were like Ed Fazer, who became a Catholic after marrying a Catholic woman.
And 8 children.
He became serious about Catholicism.
Well, he was,
and I'm guessing, I shouldn't say for sure.
High school teacher, like teaching theistic philosophy or anyway, yeah, there's a multitude of factors. As with anything, there's going to be a multitude of factors in any sort of major life choice
I want you to stay a Catholic, if it makes you happy. But I really think if you join my team, the cognitive dissonance will go right down. You don't have to. You don't have to spend so many.
I don't have to worry about
all those books, mind you. Look at the books here.
Burn them all.
0 books.
Yeah. If you become an atheist,
Doug is just like in the void of nothingness.
Yeah.
Come to the dark side.
This is good. Non-existence.
Get behind me, Doug.
Don't you want to sin, John?
No, he's over there.
We got Math Pig joins us from overseas.
Pigs are smart.
G'day.
Yeah, I'm just saying hello. Don't worry, continue on with your conversation. You're grand. I'm just here lurking.
Oh, someone has to get the quote from Liam Neeson. I got a certain set of skills, and then have Math Pig read it.
He's not from that far away from me. Well, where he was born, but then.
You know what line I'm talking about?
The one from
Taken.
Yeah, Taken.
Yeah. Has anybody asked you to do that before?
No, usually what I get asked are 2 questions. Are you a Catholic atheist or a Protestant atheist? And the other one is, do you have my Lucky Charms?
All right, which one are you? A Protestant atheist or a Catholic one?
I'm a Protestant atheist.
Ah, interesting. Okay.
You're a Protestant atheist.
Well,
Protestant though.
Pine Creek, you will find this quite funny. When we were doing the census this year, you get obviously asked your religious point of view, and I did it online, and I said none, but I refer to myself as non-religious, and then they went down and they asked the second question, which was, what were you born as? So they were really fucking specific on, we want to find out whether you're a Catholic or a Protestant at birth.
Why didn't you say what were you when they asked what were you born as? Just say pig.
Or atheist, because all babies are atheists anyway.
That's true.
It's very, very cultural over here, even to the point when we went and I got my daughter, we did her birth certificate because her mother, I don't care about a religion, her mother would be more religious. And when she said Catholic, they actually changed it from Londonderry to Derry because it's what the Catholics refer to that particular city as. We didn't ask to do that, but they did it as a standard because it's very cultural. And now I'm just rambling. So, yeah. Hi.
So if rocks are atheists, are computers theists because they have a creator?
Maybe if they're sentient.
I mean, John,
I've been listening. If I can say, I've been listening for about 30 minutes, 40 minutes. I've heard you all. I'm wearing I don't like wearing headphones. Is that still working? Can you still hear me?
Yeah.
Perfect. Right. I've just heard discussions on topics. I've heard definitions of words. I'm guessing Ryan might be Ryan the Presbyterian. I know Pine Creek. I know JB. Don't know John Buck. Don't know 300 IQ.
He's really smart.
300 IQ, of course. No, I'm just youth resist on Twitter. If you're
the point I'm trying to put across is I've heard everybody try and fight over arguments of definitions of this, that, and the other, and I know
not me.
I know less about the people that we're talking about than I do. I want to know about the person rather than what their definition of this fucking phrase or this word is. I've just heard memes for 40 minutes.
Oh, you're one of those touchy-feely types.
Oh, fuck no, man. I tell everybody to go fuck themselves. I am a Sith Lord. Come join the evil side, you know. In all honesty, I think me and you would have a fantastic conversation, Pine Creek. I knew fucking Digital Gnosis when he had 32 subs. I interviewed him when he had 32 subs. It was, yeah, it's... No, I think me and you would get along an awful lot. But all I've heard is memes tonight, in the 30 minutes, 40 minutes that I've heard.
Well, this is why I hate philosophy, because it gets down to
Bullshit.
semantics. Yeah.
Philosophy is very good for describing how you feel. It's not great for conversations.
Yeah. I like to keep things as simple as possible.
Which I did hear you call someone out on that earlier. Someone said it's just...
Yeah. What's your real name, German IQ?
Oh, I'm Chris.
Chris. Yeah.
Yeah, I was being correct about a lot of things. And Doug was suppressing the truth and righteousness, and I'm shut down my Aristotelian facts and logic.
Hey, I think you sound like a great guy, but the computing power, I think I'm not alone. Everything slows down when you start talking a language other than English. I mean, you know what I mean? You're talking...
Yeah, I mean...
You're talking
you use big
philosophical
words.
language. It's not so much that they're big words. It's just they're words that are used in a certain genre of.
If I can say,
but they take more working memory.
Yeah.
Someone screams out naturalist. Someone screams out materialist. These words come with baggage. I can guarantee that nobody on this panel right now would be able to be described under one label specifically. Everybody is gray. Everybody is a blurred. It's all a spectrum. You know, I've heard an awful lot of words being shouted out, this, that, and the other, and all the rest of it. Argumentation over what this word means and what you mean by what you say. I'd rather you ask me a question, throw me off a cliff, and what happens after that, rather than asking what's your moral point of view. You get more evidence, more honesty from one question than you would from just using a fucking label. Yeah. By the way, it is 5 o'clock in the morning for me, and I am stoned as a motherfucker. So I put that in the
Did you take a pill that was orange and barrel shaped?
No, I've been smoking weed all night from about 9 o'clock. So it's been
Okay. Well, if you have a beer in the fridge, go ahead and drink it now, and relax. You'll be fine.
Well, I only get as philosophical as I need to get to argue with John. So.
I mean, you don't really need to get philosophical at all. John is like an extremely low IQ individual. No, I'm kidding. John's smart, but I just love dunking on the man.
He left. I don't know where he went. I don't know why he left.
Yeah, he said that he's coming right back. So, no, because he left, then he came back on like a different account, and then he left again. I think he's just scared about being owned once again by everybody here. But
yeah, we were kind of ganging up on him.
But Chris, tell me, in your opinion, why a guy like me should study more philosophy?
Moral philosophy?
No, more.
More philosophy? I'm not sure if you should. I mean, I study philosophy mostly because I enjoy it, and I think philosophy does have some capacity to get at truths in certain aspects of reality, which I want to do. I think that's a good goal. I think that's intrinsically good, right? And since this is something I value, I tend to engage in these activities that I believe discover truth in certain areas of reality. And so if truth is something you value, I would encourage you to study more philosophy. But if it isn't, then I don't see any reason for you to be involved in philosophy. So if you'd rather live your life or pursue different goods, I don't think there's anything that you've lost necessarily by not studying philosophy and doing other activities which bring about other goods.
Yeah, because basically whenever I see syllogisms used in debates and philosophical arguments, it all boils down to the premises and whether you believe those premises. And then once you dig into those arguments for each premise, they have arguments, and it just goes back and back and back. And it really just becomes either your intuitions, empirical evidence, or how you were raised. Right.
And so, and I mean, it's because of that certain arguments work within different frameworks, right? Ultimately, I mean, I'm not as invested in epistemology as I am other fields of philosophy, which is something I might want to change, but I just think it's really boring. But I guess you could say that ultimately arguments are going to come down to whatever framework you work in, right? Your fundamental foundations.
Yeah.
And so ultimately arguments are going to appeal to what's plausible or what's likely under your fundamental framework, right? If you have a fundamental tendency towards reducing things, right? Or if you have a fundamental sympathy towards non-reductionism, right? Then what arguments are going to do is sort of work for or appeal to certain frameworks or fundamental assumptions. But ultimately, when it comes to fundamental assumptions, I'm not really sure, right? You could either be a foundationalist, adopt some sort of phenomenal conservatism. I know you're not liking all the words that I'm throwing out here, but yeah, it's whatever way that you sort of.
Well, I consider myself a foundationalist. Like, I think it makes sense to me that at some point you have to say, this is just a brute fact. You can't keep going back, regress forever.
Right. And I mean, if you start out with a sort of foundation of facts or propositions that you hold to be self-evidently true, or you believe out of some sort of epistemic leap, then arguments just from there, after you have these assumptions, are going to work off of them and try to discern things about the natural world.
But do you believe that you can arrive at the God question through philosophy?
I tend towards no.
Good.
Yeah, mostly because, well, I mean, with my name here, the German idealism respecter, in the German continental tradition, there's a, well, that's where all the Heideggerian, Kantian epistemologies came from, right? And so this idea that we can't get at this fundamental metaphysical truth and we can't apply these sort of philosophical reasonings beyond our empirical experience is sort of the gist of this whole school of philosophy that I'm sympathetic to. So no, I don't believe that we can reason that God exists or using certain principles that we picked up in our empirical experience, because those don't reflect reality beyond this transcendental illusion, as some choose to call it.
Are you an idealist?
It's complicated. I call myself a sort of Schopenhauerian idealist. So yes, in the sense that I don't believe that matter is fundamental, but
what do you think is fundamental?
Will.
And do you think will is not matter?
No, I think will is a mindless, irrational impulse, and that's what underlies all of reality.
Like when a rock falls off a cliff, is that will?
Okay, so this.
Oh boy, I shouldn't ask that, should I?
Also, under this view, right, the idea is that there are sort of two sides to the things that exist, right? There's what we interact with, right, which we call matter, the material world. It abides by certain principles and laws, and so we can make judgments about things. We can apply the PSR, and we can do that all perfectly fine with reasonable accuracy. But on the flip side of things, on sort of the fundamental nature of things, right, beyond just our interactions and representation of reality, there's this, like I said, an irrational, mindless will or impulse that is the phenomenal underside of what
we're talking about consciousness, right?
Well, I mean, some people use the term consciousness, but I wouldn't say that it's aware or rational at all, right? It's not God. It doesn't have intentions. It just pushes, right? It just is an impulse almost, right? It's barbaric. It's brute. Some people like to characterize it as the will to live, right? Just the will to life. That's what it is. And so, cast out in a certain way, Schopenhauer would sort of understand it as this will to life is where organisms come from, right? We are products of, or a sort of instantiation of this will to life, right? All of our desires to preserve ourselves, natural selection, all that is a result of this fundamental will, this impulse to continue on.
It sounds way more complicated than it needs to be.
Yeah, well, the argument for this, obviously, there's sort of ways to go about it, but generally the way that I would like to look at it is that if we assume a sort of monistic view of reality, right, that there's fundamentally one thing or one substance, right, that things have being in common, then not only can we learn facts about reality by our senses, right, but we can also learn things about reality from introspection. In the same way that I learned that I have a body by looking at it, seeing it, hearing it, all those sorts of wonderful things, I also learned that I have a body because I feel it internally, right? I have this phenomenal presence of having a body. And so from this, we can infer that along with the physical, material side of things, there's also a phenomenal side of things, right?
No, you're saying a lot of words. I don't understand anything you're saying.
Well, okay, so the idea of the argument is that looking at the world as an integrated vision, right? It's a complete holistic entity almost.
Are you a dualist? Do you think consciousness and material are different things?
Two sides of the same thing. There's one thing, but there's shut up, John. Go away.
In one sentence, summarize your worldview.
Well, okay.
I'll go first. I think the material world is all that exists. I could be wrong, but it seems we can study it and we can learn things from it, and some of our predictions make sense and works.
Okay.
What's your worldview?
My worldview is that there, fundamentally, what being is an irrational, mindless will to live, and that certain instantiations of this will can experience will in a way that is third personal and objective. That was horrible, and I know that doesn't lead you any further to what I actually...
You notice how mine was a lot different than yours?
Yeah, mine was correct, and that's the difference there.
Yours is correct.
I mean, you
like,
can't...
When I throw a ball up in the air, I can expect it to go up and then fall and then come back down, and I can catch it.
Right.
I'm describing my worldview, that it's uniform. We can make predictions. It's tangible. Now, that doesn't mean, we can use telescopes, microscopes to see, touch, feel, mass spectrometers. But it's based on something that other people, no matter what their bias is, can verify. That's my worldview. Now, what's yours?
Chris, is there something that your worldview can account for that Pine Creek's can't?
Yeah, good question, Ryan.
Well, I don't necessarily think of worldview and ontology in the sense of accounting for things. I believe that sounds insidiously Bayesian, but I don't believe that. Well, I just don't think Pine Creek's worldview goes far enough. I don't believe that it accounts for the human sort of experience or the phenomenal perception in reality. It leaves sort of
consciousness. Do you just mean it can't account for consciousness?
I don't like using consciousness because I don't like the baggage that comes with it. And as I become more specific and nuanced in what I'm talking about, I don't think consciousness is a good way of describing it. But we can use that tentatively, right? The sort of this internal awareness that we have, right? I believe in a worldview such as Pine Creek's, it kind of sticks out, right? It's jarring. But in my worldview...
So how does your worldview account for consciousness?
Consciousness is the other side of things.
What?
Well, you're
just saying what it's not. What is it?
Bonus. It sounds like you have two things. I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong.
Okay, so the example that Schopenhauer likes to give and I like to give is that you have a body, correct?
Well, not if you're an idealist.
Well, idealists have a body. They just don't believe in material. Well, so you have a body, right? Let's just grant that. And so you can experience your body from two ways, right? You can feel inside of it, right? You can feel your fingers, you're aware, you feel sensations, you experience things through your body, right? That's one way of experiencing it. That's one side of your body, right? This experience, these sensations. But on the other hand, you can look at for example, get one arm and look at it, touch it, feel it with the other arm and understand it as this object, right? As a material object.
That's also just an internal introspection though. I mean, whether you feel it internally or whether you look at your arm, that's also just an internal feeling. It's all in your brain, right? So,
right, in my specific experience of it.
I mean, how do you account for consciousness, Chris?
Yeah, all we have is our consciousness. Like I can't use a microscope without using it through my consciousness.
Ultimately, it comes down to my perception, right? But in one hand, I'm experiencing it as an object external to me, right? I'm taking it with my five senses, and on the other hand, I'm experiencing it internally, right? As my hand, right? Sensations that I feel within the hand.
But whether when you experience it as your hand, you're basically just talking about your sense of proprioception.
Let's just grant him all that, but
Okay.
he still hasn't explained anything. Explain consciousness from your worldview.
You just think it's fundamental, right? Like it's non-reducible. It's just a brute.
I think will is fundamental. I think the will to life is fundamental.
Okay, I can say that too.
Right. Metaphysically fundamental to all beings.
Physically fundamental. I'll just say that.
Okay, and so human consciousness results from this will. As this will consistently strives, pushes, experiences impulse, it now to be clear, I am not completely perspicuous and flawlessly clear in what I'm presenting. There's always going to be some gaps in my worldview.
Just say your worldview can't account for consciousness, can't explain it without just saying it's a brute fact, and then we're done.
Well, no worldview can. No worldview can.
Well, there we go. So then your worldview has no advantages to mine.
Well, I'm explaining how it does. Right? No, I said there's still going to be some gaps somewhere in the worldview, but there are also things that mine can explain that yours can't.
Like?
For example, under my worldview, phenomenal experience is fundamental to reality.
Yeah, fundamental experiences are fundamental to reality as well. Yeah, my worldview can explain that. It's a brute fact.
Wait, so
it's necessary.
Okay, so you believe that? So you don't believe they're fundamental to reality, or do you?
Yeah, it's a brute fact.
Okay, so you believe that the material derives from the experiential, the phenomenal?
No, it is. It doesn't derive from. It is.
Okay, so you think that
your worldview can't explain that. Mine can. I just define it as so. See how easy that is?
No, because I'm laying out an argument for why incorporating consciousness or phenomenality as intrinsic to reality is a plausible option. It's a desirable option metaphysically.
It's a desirable?
Right, if we're trying to pick out the best theory of reality, or the one that most likely corresponds to what actually exists.
Okay, what's reality?
What exists? The totality of what exists.
Okay, and how do you figure out what exists?
Introspection and exploration of the world through empirical experience.
Empirical, yeah, so we've got the same worldview.
As well as introspection.
Why does the word introspection change anything?
Looking inward, right? Reflecting on our experiences as also indicative of reality.
Yeah, when I was in the lab and did thousands of titrations, I was used to be in chemistry. I really looked deep within myself and make sure I was doing it right.
Well, no, because you're doing a different practice than what I'm describing.
Oh, well, that's not what you mean by looking deep within yourself?
Well, I'm an anti-realist about most fields of science. So
I thought you used the word empirical several times.
Right. I'm not using empirical in the sense that you are. I'm using empirical as discovering that things exist, things are intelligible. Right? And starting from there, okay, we know what exists from an empirical perspective, and then we can learn more about what exists by introspection.
By sitting in a chair and smoking a cigar and thinking.
Absolutely, the only way to go about learning about the world.
I mean, I kind of accused your worldview, Chris, of just being a little overly complicated. I mean, mine's pretty much just Pine Creek's as far as like we're just material doing physics stuff. But I guess I would also, since consciousness is very spooky, I probably would also say that consciousness is also fundamental, in addition to whatever physical stuff is fundamental, like space, time, and energy, maybe. And then those basic fundamental things kind of make up everything. And consciousness is, it's spooky, but it's directly tied to material. It's just what material does. It's just one of the many things that material does.
Right, but you can accuse my view of not being informative or not being perspicuous in explaining consciousness, but I don't see how this is any better. Right? Both you and
I guess
you're the one who said your worldview is better.
Maybe it's only better because it's easier to understand.
Well,
they're exactly equivalent. Other than that,
well, as I'm trying to explain, I'm not sure if I'm getting this across.
That's all right. You don't have to explain.
Well, I just don't really know what you mean by will and how you could say that like will leads to consciousness and then what that gains you. Like it seems like you've maybe added just a little bit of ontology to my worldview, because my worldview has all the same things yours has except minus the will stuff, right?
Right. So I would just say that my worldview best how would I say this? Accommodates or acknowledges human consciousness and experience by postulating it as not a jarring, unexpected aspect of nature, but in reality just a natural occurrence from what exists. Whereas under your worldview, you have phenomenality and experience stick out like a sore thumb. It's jarring and not expected under what we would observe under nature from empirical experience.
Okay, so do you think the universe tends towards making life because of this?
Yes, exactly.
Okay.
Right, that's the will to live.
So I guess why is life so rare if that's what the universe tends to do? Like you think it'd be all over the place? Well,
I would under this view, right, the will to life is always present, it's always eminent. So it's not like it's not as if it's not manifesting itself, or it only does that within living organisms, but that it is in its
but is the material like on Mars right now, like seeking out to like create life or something?
All being is. Well, not as like I'm trying to think about how to put this in the clearest way possible, right? But that all being, all that exists, has this fundamental will to life, and that there's this desire, this impulse to produce, to continue on. And as this develops over time, we have more complex or better attempts at this will to life, right? It's sort of applying some sort of biological natural selection to reality itself, which is why some people call it biological idealism.
I guess, but it almost seems like we can, I don't know, maybe like just observe the universe and just see that isn't happening, to see that, rocks are just kind of bumping into each other in space due to the laws of gravity, and that this isn't really getting us any closer to life.
Well, I'd say that we have access to the will side of reality, right? That's a different aspect of it.
All right, I'm gonna cut in for a second because we've got Spartan in here now, who was going crazy in the live chat earlier, telling us how wrong John Buck was. So I want him to kind of give us a preference on, or give us some issues he had with some of John Buck's answers from earlier.
JB, you should first ask if he's saved. Are you saved, son?
Me?
Oh, he's saved.
Sure. Everybody.
Do you know the Lord Jesus Christ as your personal savior, son?
Should I just pretend to be John Buck?
Wait, hold on. I'll pretend to be John. Okay, so I have this really awful view that's completely incorrect, and there's no reason to hold it. Here's another pathetic argument for it, and here's an awful refutation of your cogent and completely accurate response to my view.
These are great friends, aren't they?
Hey, I didn't put him under the bus that bad.
John made multiple defenses of the morality of God damning me to hell for all eternity in sacrifice for Doug's and Ryan's souls.
But hell's not that bad. He also said that.
he said I made it to heaven.
Pretty good.
I hypothetically made it to heaven.
Yeah. God has no goals. He doesn't want to do anything. He just does things.
No emotions.
Yeah, he has no emotions, no desires. He doesn't care about anything. Yet he understands that things are wrong, morally incorrect, and things are morally good. And he makes free choices, but he doesn't want anything at all. And he would still
supernatural zombie.
Essentially, no.
Yeah, but zombies don't have libertarian free will, so.
Sure, they can eat this guy or they can eat that guy. Spartan, what did you disagree with John about?
Pretty much everything, but
2 hours.
You sound like you're in a tin can.
yeah, it's these stupid headphones don't sound very good, and this room's kind of echoey. Let me move.
Well, you said that John should be a universalist, right?
Yeah.
That seems like a good first step in answering the problem of evil.
Yeah, I would say so. I don't think it is
I don't-
so super simple after that, but
Yeah, no, it's just part of what you would need. I think there's still a bunch of holes left, but
Yeah, like people being raped, tsunamis
Right.
killing hundreds of thousands of people.
yeah, all the bad stuff that happens in the
All could be avoided if God just never created, and He didn't need to create. He was
or just made
self-sufficient.
heaven.
I mean, just be a Calvinist and believe that God is morally identical to Satan. Pretty
yeah,
easy.
I mean that's always an option. I guess.
Or that God can do whatever He wants. It's the shut up fool apologetic.
Who's the Potter?
You don't-
Clay can't talk to the Potter or whatever. Question, whatever.
Yeah.
I'm losing it. It's late.
Oh, come on.
The
I
problem
think I'm the
that you have,
furthest east. I'm 1230 over here, roughly.
Spartan, I
12:15.
think the problem is that what I've noticed is that when Christians go to universalism, they often just go to atheism. Disagree?
I mean, clearly, I'm still a Christian.
But
For
how
now.
long?
For now, though.
For now. Okay, for now. Well,
Because you realize there's a problem, and for you, what fixes that problem is universalism. But then you're still stuck with asking the question, why this charade of these games, pawns in a chess game, when God could have just created and stuck people in heaven, like Ryan said?
yeah, I mean, I don't have an answer to that. I don't know why God chose to do it this way.
Because his ways are higher than our ways. His thoughts are higher than our thoughts.
But I think I would even go further and to say that he has a reason not to do it this way. Mainly like the pain and suffering, in the meantime, that's a good reason not to. And then if we don't have a good reason to do it, then it seems like that's evidence, in favor of atheism.
I mean, I'm sure I'm fine with saying that, like, the problem of evil is evidence for atheism.
Yeah,
I don't see.
that's
Yeah.
fair.
Yeah, I just
I
don't.
wouldn't
I
go that
just
far.
think you wouldn't go that far to say it's evidence.
It's evidence against Yahwehism,
Oh, sure,
Allahism.
whatever. Yeah, whatever you want to say. Yeah.
Yeah. But there could be an evil creator God, and then we got to explain the problem of good.
Right.
So,
I'm assuming a subset of theism.
Yeah.
Spartan, let me ask you a question. And I've got a good relationship with Spartan, so I'm not going to push you too hard on this. And
No, hit me. Whatever.
just give me a basic
Push him
question.
hard. Make him cry. Make him cry.
Make me cry.
If
I'll go make a baby cry so you can hear it.
if you understand that the problem of evil adds not necessarily a defeater, but adds a problem to the theism, what do you have in your theistic views that overrides the problem of evil? I guess you would have to have a defeater for it.
Yeah, I mean, I don't necessarily have one thing I could point to that's like, oh, this defeats the problem of evil or whatever. But I just think that I don't know. There's a lot of things that add up, but I'm not. I would. The more and more I consider questions, when it comes to questions like this, I'd probably just consider myself agnostic Christian, basically. I don't have an answer, but as far as something like this, I don't have a concrete thing I could point to say this is why I believe. It's not because of this argument or anything like this. It seems it seems impossible for me not to believe. Why exactly I believe, I really honestly don't know. The more I reflect on it.
Sensus divinitatis.
That's fair.
Do you
Now,
think that your belief comes before, I don't know, the belief comes first and the justification comes second, or do you think it's not a justified belief?
Maybe, yeah, I don't know. Like the more I like look into, I don't know. I don't know how to like answer questions like that. I think I have like so much to learn, and like I hear so many people like answer questions like this because I don't know. I just think there's so much that goes through, and when people start really diving into the philosophy, I feel like they're like too quick to like give an answer to a question like this, and I just like every time I like think I understand it, I feel like I confuse myself, and I just don't. I don't know. I honestly don't know why I believe,
I
Um,
appreciate that.
now,
but
do
I
you?
do. That's the thing. Like it seems impossible. Like I just don't think I can just change my mind willy nilly. Like if I really wanted to, I'm sure I could like convince myself. But
You know, Spartan. Out of all the people I've interviewed, which is could be 1,000 people now over the last 6 or 7 years, I don't think I've ever had a theist come on when I ask, "Why do you believe?" and they say, "I don't know." I've never had a theist say that. I don't know, and that's probably the honest answer.
You know, I've heard one person tell me that before, and I knew them pretty well. And later on, when talking to them, they made it sound like the main reason why they were a Christian was because it was part of their identity. They didn't feel like they were themselves if they weren't a Christian. And it was something that they have maybe some sentimental ties to with their family and whatnot, but it seemed like it was part of their personal identity.
Yeah, I've had a few people tell me that they believe because they like it. It's as simple as that. It makes them feel good.
Now, Spartan, let me give you an out to this situation. Do you?
I got to run. Thanks for hosting,
Oh,
JB.
yeah. Thanks for coming on, Doug. Good to see you.
see ya.
See ya. I would love to know more about Ryan, but later, some other day.
I watch your show, so well, mostly, kinda.
You play poker?
No, not really.
Okay. Well, if you have money, come on Wednesday nights.
Okay, I'll just give you the money in advance, then I don't have to bother playing
There you
poker.
go. See you guys.
Yeah, see ya.
See ya.
Now, now here's me giving you sort of an out, Spartan. You could just hold that you hold the resurrection of Jesus as the foundation to it, and that the problems that you don't understand because of the resurrection, you just have the trust that God's going to have all that figured out.
Well, yeah, I mean, I believe in Christianity for like it seems to me like some sort of either like revelation. It seems like God has like in some sense like told me that Christianity is true. And I'm not saying that in like some like weird sense or anything, but like and I am perfectly open to changing my mind too. I'm not saying like I know it for a fact or anything. I don't want
You're a
it to sound like
precept
that
now.
either.
No,
Basically, yeah, you got it.
would you say it was a personal experience?
I would say so. Like, I mean, for myself, like, if you want to get into like when I became a Christian, like, I got interested in Christianity through my girlfriend, who's now my wife, and we started going to church, and like, it started to make sense to me, and I like wanted to look into it further, and we just were kind of talking about it a lot, and like one day it was like me and her, and then we're at like a friend of ours' house doing like a Bible study, and like things just seemed to change for me. Like, there seemed like there was like a switch that clicked in my head, and all of a sudden it was like, this wouldn't make any sense not to believe this now. And so I don't
So
exactly know
was
how
that
to
after
explain that.
was that
Right.
after just like one Bible study or a lot
No,
of
no,
them?
no. It was like a while. Yeah, I was like interested for whatever reason, you know. And almost like I like to explain it like it's like if you every time you like put chocolate ice cream in your mouth, you like spit it out. You're like, this is disgusting, right? And then all of a sudden you like take a bite of chocolate ice cream and it just tastes amazing. You can't really explain, but clearly
Sure.
there's something different, right? And
Can we
that's basically
can we replace chocolate ice cream with tapioca pudding, and that way you can try
yeah. I
everything?
don't know. Yeah, like
I
that's
mean,
the most random dessert. I thought that was
I
funny.
mean, I made myself like coffee by doing that. I drank it when I didn't like it, and eventually I liked it. So
Yeah, I mean that's fair. That's fair, and that's why like I would say the analogy breaks down because it wasn't like that. It was almost like you didn't. And I see what you're saying, like because I went to these things where, but I don't know. It seems different than that in my head. It doesn't seem like it was like a slow
yeah.
progression. Like because I made myself like IPA beers like that. Like I wanted to get into like craft beer, and I didn't really like it, but I was like interested in like trying all the different ones. Eventually,
Yeah,
I did.
IPAs are hard to like.
Yeah, but now I like them. But yeah, so it's similar to that, but that's a little different because that was just like
well,
doing something over and over again, and eventually you like
well,
yeah.
I don't like beer at all, so I mean,
since Doug left, I have to say, if he were here, he would have mentioned his Pine Creek theorem, which is that
Yeah.
what is it? Yeah.
Because it has something
That
to do
women
with
have
female,
converted
basically.
more people
Yeah.
than the Holy Spirit, right? So that's what he would have blamed it on if he were here. So I had to mention that since he just left.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, so I guess there was nothing specific about it that caught your eye, or
I don't know. I mean, I would say like
He's from
I
South
mean,
Carolina and Southern Baptist, and
No, I mean it happened in Texas. See, I think I was always interested, but like when I lived in South Carolina, those people were so like hypocritical and like horrible that I was just like turned away. And then I like found people in Texas that we met, and they were like really reasonable and open and
what
kind. And
denomination, if you don't mind me asking?
I go to like a Reformed church, but it's like I swear, like when I hear a lot of other like the theology of our church is pretty similar to a lot of like Acts 29 type like John Piper stuff, which I don't believe that kind of stuff. I'm very different, but I swear like we don't talk about like theology all that much at church. Like we do, but not like there's not as many disagreements as much as like my church is more of like a community. Like we had people come over today and we spent the day with some people from our church, and we're like really good friends. So I would say like the reason I still even go to my church is because of community. Like the theology of my church, I think, is pretty bad.
so you don't like the theology of your church? It's the first I've heard you
Not
say
really.
that.
I mean, they're like Calvinists, like pretty.
Yeah, that's hard. I think Calvinism would be hard to stomach.
Well,
But I kind
you're
of
a
consider
Calvinist,
myself.
aren't you?
Yeah, I consider myself like sort of a Calvinist, but I mean I'm a Universalist, so that's
Universalist, yeah.
Yeah.
He's
I just think
he's
there's a lot of aspects of Calvinism that make a lot of sense. Like if God wants to accomplish a goal, like it seems pretty unlikely that he's not going to accomplish it. If God wants to save everybody, I can't imagine that he doesn't save everybody. And hearing like John Buck talk about like, oh well, God wants to save everybody, but he like prioritizes their free will, just sounds ridiculous to me. Like that's like, oh, I want to save my baby from or like my child from running into this burning building, but he's got free will. I told him not to do it, so.
I'm gonna do a quick plug real quick. There was a guy in the chat, Spartan, you know him really well. Ryan, I don't know if you do. Runs a YouTube channel, Apocalypse Here. He's
I know of him. Yeah, he's
a universal Calvinist. Okay, that's Laura's husband.
Yeah,
he's a Calvinist Universalist. I had him on my channel to do an interview with him one day on Universalism. Him and I first, and Spartan, correct me if I'm wrong, but he tends to hold more to what Calvinism was when Calvinism was started, more so than what Calvinism has turned into now that we're holding in this century. So the Calvinism has changed drastically from whenever it was first started to what it is now. And
I don't know if I would say it exactly that way or not, but I think like,
okay.
Yeah, I mean,
was I that far off, or did I just
no? I just don't think like John in particular like isn't confused on a theological topic and like, all right, we got to go to like John Calvin's primary sources or whatever to figure this out. You know what I mean? Like he holds like a variety of beliefs that it comes to different. I don't know. I think like narrowing something down to like Calvinism, like for the most part, all that really has to do with is like soteriology, like how people are saved or whatever. So as far as that goes, sure, he probably holds like you.
Do you think Calvin? Do you think John Calvin was a universalist?
Probably no, he definitely wasn't. I mean, he believed in like double predestination or whatever. I think. I don't know. I've never actually read John Calvin's like primary sources or anything. So
yeah, I've never read John Calvin, so I was just figuring. I was wondering if you had any thoughts on it. Would you say that John's been a big influence in universalism?
Oh, for sure. He's like the one that like really like I wouldn't have called myself a universalist before like I met John for sure, but like I just didn't realize it was like such a live option to like be able to call myself that, but I know like I never was like worried about hell like that. It just never has crossed my mind. Like I guess I never believed it. You know, that's why I like too, like, so like Christianity, I think we believe a ton of things, but like don't quite realize what we believe or don't believe. You know, like I think a lot of people say they believe in hell, but like if you really believed in hell in like the strict evangelical sense, like I would think you'd spend every minute of your day like evangelizing people, but you don't. You know, it's kind of like what that like and that was that like Pentel or whatever is like you'd have to be like the sickest person in the world not to try and convince me of Christianity if you believe in hell. And I think there's plenty of people that like say they believe in hell but don't really try to evangelize people. And like I don't think they're like sick. I think they just don't actually believe in hell. You know, I think they do, but they probably don't.
Okay.
So how do you deal with like passages talking about hell in the Bible as a universalist?
I mean, I think there's like a number of ways. I mean, I don't believe in inerrancy, so that definitely helps. And then I think like David Bentley Hart has his translation that like with a whole like Ionios, you know, like where it translates to the everlasting. That's like just a terrible translation. And it's like
Yeah.
of this age. So I definitely believe there's like some sort of hell punishment. You know, I don't think like everybody gets off scot free, but then I also like part of my universalism has a lot to do with like just thinking about like how little like just we have like I think we do so many things like for subconscious like you know like drug addict for example you know like does so many terrible things but like how much of that are they like actually responsible for you know like I think you're responsible for certain things but like
yeah
it's really hard to like grasp that and I think like David Bentley Hart kind of talks about how like the only way you're like truly free choice is if you like perfectly knew the outcome of your decision. You know, if you don't actually know what's going to come about from what you do, which we never really do, how can you be like fully held responsible to a sense like eternal hell? That just like doesn't make any sense.
Yeah, I mean that's definitely a pretty good question. That's actually something that I kind of think about is like how different would I be if I was born in this situation or
exactly.
you know, yeah.
Well, William Lane Craig says that God births those people in those situations because he knows that they wouldn't come to him anyway. So therefore he doesn't have to feel guilty about them not hearing about the gospel.
There's a lot of problems with that, I think.
I mean, that means God is like really like basically racist and like really only likes like certain countries, you know, like these other countries like he's not too worried about. He just throws all the bad people there.
I mean, yeah.
That's what William Lane. You can't question WLC.
I think you can.
Gosh. Man, that's just kind of odd to think about. Like if I'm thinking about like you know kids who were like abused and then became abusers as a result of that, you know, it seems weird to say that they were birthed into that situation because like they wouldn't have come to him anyway because of all the suffering that they inflict on people. It seems a bit weird to pin someone in that horrible situation just because they wouldn't come to you later.
Okay, but you're just wrong though. That's just your opinion.
That's very brutal. That's very hardcore. It's a very, very hardcore God.
Yeah. Oh, I agree with you. There's some takes of his that I just don't understand how people put him on the pedestal that they do.
Yeah. He gets I mean he's a pretty smart guy, but I do think that he has a lot of weird views every once in a while.
Spartan, what's your views on William Lane Craig? Is he a heretic or the Pope? Go.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not a big fan of William Lane Craig at all, so I don't really
heretic,
like buy into all this like natural theology type. Like that's like me, you know. Like I don't know. I've never heard of anybody who like becomes a Christian because of like the Kalam cosmological argument like convinced them. That seems ridiculous to me. But
he became a Christian because of Sarah in 7th grade. Had a smile on her face and a nice book bag.
he was the reason why he was the last straw that broke before I became an atheist. So like I was holding on to Christianity just because of him.
Really?
Well, yeah, for a little while.
Mine was a buddy of mine that was a biblical lyricist and young Earth creationist and conspiracy theorist. That's whenever I dove into the Bible and it started making no sense to me.
Yeah.
And then I dove into rabbinic understandings of the Old Testament, and they just didn't line up with what I've been taught about the New Testament my entire life. And now I'm a huge fan of the Old Testament more so than the New Testament. I actually did an interview with Rabbi Tovia Singer on here talking about Judaism.
Oh, yeah.
I want to do another one. I talked to him about coming on because I want him to come on, and we're going to go over a bunch of the Jesus prophecies.
Yeah, so that's actually kind of one of my issues with Christianity is its relationship with Judaism. How do you look at that, Spartan? Like does Judaism being true in the past like bother you? I don't know.
Yeah, it's a really interesting thing for sure, because like, yeah, I don't know exactly what your question is, but
I guess maybe some of the the weird like dietary restrictions. Like I know that that's not a thing now, but like if that was a thing even for a short period of time, that seems really a bit bizarre to me. I don't know.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, like these like just specifically almost random laws or whatever. Like
yeah, I mean even if they were temporary, they still seem a little bit weird.
I agree, and I don't know fully how to like understand these things. I think part of it is like God showing some sort of like part of his character through these things and these, but also I think part of it is like people trying to make sense of things and just like some reason that like I'm fine with saying that like some of those things are just completely made up by people trying to like make sense of something, and they like.
Yeah, I mean if you're not a what's the term? Inerrantist. Yeah, then that makes that a little bit easier, I think.
There you go, right there, Spartan.
Say what?
If there arise among you a prophet or a dreamer of dreams, and giveth thee sign or a wonder, and the sign or the wonder comes to pass, whereof he spake unto thee, saying, Let us go after other gods which thou hast not known, and let us serve them. Thou shalt not hearken unto the words of that prophet or dreamer of dreams, for the Lord your God proveth you to know whether ye love your Lord your God with all your heart and with all your soul. So basically, off of that passage in Deuteronomy, it's either the Jews knew about Jesus or they were told to follow after a God that wasn't theirs. That's one of the issues that I have with Christianity.
So you're saying that like, I'm trying to understand what you're getting at. So you're saying that like this passage would have to tell them like it's saying don't follow after any other god, and so if their God is Jesus, then
yeah, it says don't follow. This is the King James version, but you can find the other versions. It says to follow gods that your fathers have not known, which means to go after gods that the patriarchs before you didn't know about. So it would have to be that Abraham, Adam, and Moses and Noah would all have to have known about Jesus, or else they're being told in the New Testament to follow a God that their fathers did not know about.
Well, I don't think they have to know about Jesus. Like, I think if Jesus could be God, but they could like not fully understand that or whatever, they just know, like, see through a glass dimly or whatever, like whatever. It's just like cloudy image that they don't have the full. We didn't get the full revelation until Christ revealed. Like, I don't think that like Moses knew about the Trinity or anything, and I don't think that causes much issue for me. I think
you're also not an inerrantist, so you could just say that somebody messed up.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not even sure if Moses existed, to be honest. So.
Well, yeah, and I guess that passage kind of makes it sound like, I don't know, just it's still Yahweh, right? So I mean, they did
No,
know
because
that.
Yahweh and Jesus would be different.
No, why?
Because Yahweh would be the Father, Jesus would be the Son, the Holy Spirit would be the Holy Spirit.
I don't think that's.
Jesus is not Yahweh, and Jesus is not the Holy Spirit.
I don't exactly know how that works, but I always was under the assumption that like you could just like change Yahweh for God. That's the way I
I
understood
mean,
it. So like Yahweh could be a more broader term.
anytime I try to bring up problems like that about the Trinity, basically it's one God when that would cause problems for it to be three persons, and it's three persons when it would cause problems to be one God. So uh, so in this case, it would just be one God.
The laws of logic. If the Father equals God and Jesus equals God, then Jesus equals the Father.
No, you got it all
Yes,
wrong.
yeah. See, I don't think
That's the
that's the way
law
it
of
works.
identity. That's how it
Yeah.
works.
See, I just don't think that's like the way. I mean, I think I don't know. A part of it too is like sometimes like I think about these things and it's just like I think that like I'm kind of like who am I to like make this decision? Like I think at some point with these like extremely complicated topics, like I just kind of I don't know. It seems I don't know. I agree with what you're saying, but I think there's other ways to understand this. Like, obviously, people have believed in the Trinity and they're not stupid, right? They didn't just like completely have cognitive dissonance and like ignore the law of identity or and like, you know what I mean? Like, people have understood this. So it seems weird for me just to like bring up like, oh well, the law of identity. So clearly the Trinity is stupid and you can't believe it or you're irrational. You know, like when someone says that, like it doesn't hold any weight with me because like I don't know, there were smart people, and I can, and as I like study more, I'm not going to say like I'm always going to believe this because there might be something out there that could like convince me. I just haven't
Yeah.
read it yet, but like to a
Yeah,
point,
it kind of
right
does make
now,
me wonder then, like what would kind of change your mind, just because it sounds like because there is always going to be that really smart guy who believed it, right? So
yeah, I'm not exactly sure what would change my mind, but I know like it could be changed. Like I'm not like I said, like if someone did show me that, like I think it would have to be like I don't know exactly, to be honest. I don't know. Like, say, just like a thought experiment, though. Say, like, Christianity really is true, and God really can like reveal something to you, and it takes you a while to like figure out like exactly what He was trying to say. You know, kind of like my understanding. Like, say it is correct. You know, just for thought experiment. I think it kind of makes sense that like it's like hard for me to comprehend why I believe this, and like it's also hard uh to like change, but it also like my theology changes a lot, you know, like I'm perfectly willing to like change details of it. It's just really hard to like shift, but there's plenty of Christians that would basically call me an atheist, you know, like because I don't believe in hell, and like so it's
yeah.
like I think I don't know, it's like hard for me to make that like
I mean,
big jump
it would
to like
be, I think it would be hard to say what would change your mind if you're not entirely sure why you
yeah.
believe it.
I agree that it's hard
it
to like I can't come up with something like right off the bat that would like cause me to change from being a Christian to an atheist for
mm,
sure. But I
mm,
can also but I can think of plenty of things that would like change my understanding. You know, like say we like come to find out that like Paul didn't write any of the letters of the New
mm,
Testament and they're all like forgeries later on, and I'm like, okay, well the New Testament doesn't really make any sense to like draw many conclusions from if it's like a third century document, or you know what I mean?
mm.
Like
Do
somehow
you
we know that.
do you hold a 6, 7, or 13 on Paul?
I don't know. I mean, I think like John, we talked about, me and John are making a video on it, and he holds to 10, and his case for 10 sounds like it makes a whole lot of sense. So, like, as of right now, I'd say I hold to like all the 10 and just the three pastoral letters that Paul probably didn't write.
Okay, I mean that's fair. You know me, man. I don't give you too much pushback. I just ask you
Yeah,
questions.
no, you're more than welcome to push back too. I could be completely like I mean, first off, like I think I'm smart in like some areas, but I also know that I have plenty of like areas where I'm not
Did
educated
you
enough or just
did you watch SJ's video yesterday?
Some of it.
When
I
I
was
first
getting pretty
started this,
frustrated.
when I first started the stream and it was just me and Ben, I was gonna go live and do a review of that video with Ben in here, but I couldn't get the audio to work right.
SJ really frustrates me. She's one of the ones that frustrates me more.
You know who SJ is? Right?
Me?
Yeah.
S.J.
Thomason?
Yeah. I don't know her that well, but she may have blocked me. I don't know.
She's got a private account. She privated her account. So
okay, yeah, because I think I was following her for a while, but I haven't seen her forever, so that would be why.
She just doesn't listen. That's the thing. Like that Dr. Kip showed her exactly where she was wrong on this whole Psalm 22 and the Dead Sea Scrolls or whatever, and she just didn't change her opinion at all.
She's arguing for the Dead Sea Scrolls interpretation of Psalms 22 against the guy who wrote his dissertation on the Dead Sea Scrolls.
Yeah, he essentially showed her that this understanding she has of the Dead Sea Scrolls is basically someone making it up off of a missing part that we can't even see. I don't know. I feel like she has this idea that there's a Dead Sea, that they found a full Bible or something in the Dead Sea Scrolls, when it's just these random fragments that people have pieced together. It's not some full document. I don't know. I can't.
Yeah, I was in the live chat yesterday watching that video when Dana Ray was talking about how we have to accept the patriarchs given the proper names to the Gospels because nobody disputes it or whatever, and how we have to accept the early datings. And I'm just I'm in the chat and I'm like, textual criticism is a valid historical method and it's used for a reason. I wish SJ would go and listen to Mark Goodacre and have a discussion with Goodacre. Because that's somebody that's a Christian that will tell you, look, you can be a Christian and still hold to the scholarship. She thinks that in order to be a Christian, it has to be 100% inerrant, no contradictions. It has to be completely true. And
yeah.
Do you now curious, Spartan, since you don't hold to inerrancy, do you hold to any big contradictions in the Bible?
I think there's plenty of places where it contradicts itself. I think that if you put all the new even the New Testament authors in a room together, they'd probably kill each other. They don't agree. That's the thing. I talked to Chris Keith, I had him on my channel, who's a historical Jesus scholar, and he's a Christian, and he even said he explains the differences in the Gospels as for example, in I guess it's Mark or Matthew, whatever, one of them where Simon helps Jesus carry the cross, and John takes that out. And John takes that out for a purpose. John's trying to show that Jesus is basically Superman or whatever, doesn't need any help. Fine. I don't think it was just it's not just we have to harmonize it and say oh, John just didn't say it, but he actually did help him. He just left that part out. No, John left that part out with the intention of saying no one helped Jesus carry the cross. That's a contradiction. John said no one did, and the other gospel said someone did. So I'm fine with saying that. And then the Old Testament for sure, those prophets are all talking about different stuff.
Yeah. Do you hold to the so I'm guessing you're one of those ones that looks at God, what is it? I'm trying to remember the book, but the prophecy of Tyre, you just completely are yeah, that one's screwed up.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, as far as scholarship goes, you can't I don't think you can even walk into a university and be the prophecy of Tyre, Joel Baden is just gonna freaking laugh at you and tell you go home and go to some evangelical seminary. You don't really belong here.
He did I don't know if you watched it. He did an interesting video that got released today with Myth Vision.
Oh, I watched most of his stuff, but I didn't see it today.
They went through and did a yay or nay on whether or not they existed in the Old Testament, going through a lot of the big names of the Old Testament. And I liked how Joel Baden.
I'm sure he
King
said yay
David.
on David at least.
Is it King Saul that's right before David?
Yeah.
Yeah. Then he gave him a yay, but
Hmm.
he said that yay was dependent on David being a yay.
Okay.
But it was good though because he went through and he did a preference thing on it at the beginning, and he was like, he's like, when I'm doing this, I want to let you know that there's a difference between not existing historically and not existing the way they're written about biblically.
Mm-hmm.
He's like, this person could exist, but the story we have about him in the Bible could be completely nothing that we have for them to have existed.
It's getting pretty
Ooh.
late here. I think I might dip out. Oh, someone just joined.
Yeah, the only reason I'm up is because I'm staying up feeding babies. So I just appreciate you guys keeping me company, basically.
John, you are muted if you want to unmute.
Oh,
What's up, guys?
What's
hello,
going on,
hello.
man?
Not much.
You
I
Were you
heard my
listening the whole time, or did you just come back in?
I just came back in now. Yeah.
now you
Yeah.
missed my whole speech about how the only reason I'm a Christian is because of cognitive dissonance, basically.
Yeah.
Yeah. Good. Good.
It's okay. It's on tape.
I'm going to head out, but tell Laura that I really like her crocheted vegetables.
Yeah.
I saw those on Twitter. I thought they were great.
Yeah. Well, you can have some if you want.
What?
Yeah.
She sent
Put
my
in some
babies
orders,
2
man.
crochet
Yeah.
dinosaurs.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. We can.
I
she'll
don't
be
feel like I
totally.
deserve it.
Yeah.
What are you talking about, man? Yeah. Let us know what you want. She can make some for you. Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Well, that's cool.
Yeah.
I want Carl Barr. Can I have him?
My cat?
Yes, I want your cat.
Of course
The
not.
person that's in the ground.
Yeah, the dead guy. Yeah, no.
I don't want the dead
I
guy.
crochet a cat. It would
Yeah.
not be good.
No, you can't have Carl Bar.
Yeah, can she crochet me a
unfortunately.
Carl Barr?
Possibly, yeah. You can get that. I'll talk to her about her crocheting you like a black cat. Yeah. We'll see. But yeah, Ryan. Yeah, seriously. She
Cool.
can
Well,
make you some veggies. Yeah.
awesome. Well, maybe I'll send you a message about it. So
Cool. Sounds good, man.
all right. Well, see you later.
Have a good one, Ryan. Good to see you, man.
Yep.
All right, I'm going to mute for a couple minutes to go pick up a baby, but I'll be back and I'll stay
All right.
here, but I'm just going to be on.
I'll get owned by John real quick.
What's up, JB?
What's going on,
It's
man?
been
How
a
you
while.
doing? It has.
You're doing okay.
It has. I had
okay.
I had my wife is in Charlotte tonight for an Alanis Morissette concert. So
no shit.
I had some I was home
Alanis
with just
Morissette?
I was home with just me and the kids, and kids were busy
my
watching a
God.
movie in the living room, and I was like, I'm gonna do an open stream and just see if you want to come hang out for a little bit, and here we are 3 hours later.
Yeah.
But
yeah.
it's fun.
I mean, earlier, we're still sort of, unpacking all of our stuff. So, we're not quite settled in Roanoke.
I put a thing on Twitter earlier. Put a thing on Twitter a little bit ago. I put a thing on Twitter a little bit ago. It said tonight's live stream was a win. I had Pine Creek in the panel, and I had Shannon Q in my audience.
I love watching Pine Creek kind of do his thing.
So how'd you feel about John Buck?
Well, not super great. I don't know. I feel like he's sort of
He's a new Catholic.
He is a new Catholic. He's also quite confined to a certain account of Catholic theology, right? Like it feels like he's very confined to that. And I worry about that a little bit. I worry about his sort of support of, libertarian free will. Um, I don't think that's sustainable, but yeah, I don't know. He seems like a nice guy. I haven't really interacted with him much,
Yeah, he's a good guy.
but he seems like a nice guy.
But you know me, man. I'm just gonna ask questions, just sit back and just have some fun with it. I don't take any of it too serious, you know.
No, yeah, no, for sure, for
I'm
sure.
one of the good ones.
I still can't believe your wife went to an Alanis Morissette concert.
Yeah.
I love that. I love it.
Yeah, her and two of the girls from work that she works with.
That's so awesome. Where at? Where at in South Carolina?
It was in Charlotte.
Oh, it was in Charlotte. Yeah.
Yeah.
Was it at a stadium?
Some open air like amphitheater kind of thing up there somewhere.
Gotcha.
I don't know. I just pulled her up on the little thing tracking her phone or whatever, and she's still like an hour from the house.
Yeah.
Hey, there's a baby.
Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness. Spartan, no.
But yeah, so like I said, I just
I can't hold the camera and hold a bottle. So.
That's fair.
The camera's more important.
True.
Right.
I think once this guy starts screaming, you'll realize that that's not true.
Who is that? Is that
That is Luke.
Luke.
Oh, where's JB?
He's upstairs still, sleeping. One at a time.
Luke.
Yeah,
They're
he told me.
So cute. They're so cute.
I talked to him right before they had them, and was like, "What's their names?" And he told me their names, and I was like, "Thought you were gonna name one after me." He goes, "Well, now that I think about it, one of them's initials are JB, so I guess we're screwed there."
Right.
They started rolling over the other day.
Yeah.
How old are they now?
3
months.
They're like 5 months, but like 3 months adjusted age or whatever.
That's right. I was thinking. I forgot she had them early. I was thinking about when they were due when I was just doing the calculations in my head.
Yeah, so they're more like a 3-month-old baby, but it was 5 months ago that they were born.
Right.
So, John, now that I got you here, I was talking bad about you earlier.
Yeah, we're talking all kinds of crap.
Would you say that your flavor of Calvinism is sort of a trying to get back to the roots of what Calvinism was as opposed to what it is nowadays, or how exactly would you go about explaining your brand of Calvinism?
I mean, so the only way that I would really talk about Calvinism positively is through Bart, who is a Calvinist, who was a Calvinist. And by that I mean, I think that predestination is the thing. I think that's real. I think that election, unconditional election, is a thing. I'm not concerned really with recovering like what Calvin really meant, or what later Calvinist followers were trying to do, or anything like that. I think what Calvin really got was that the purposes of God are revealed in Christ from before the foundation of the world. He does some weird stuff with that. Obviously, he ends up splitting, between the saved and the damned. But if you simply stick with that insight, that all of the stuff has been decided from before all ages, I think that's good. I think everyone's involved with that. I think that in Jesus, the whole cosmos is being elected. All of reality is being enfolded into God's purposes. So in that sense, I'm quote unquote Calvinist. I don't know. I really don't know what else to call it, because what other system actually has, predestination and election kind of front, center, and middle, right?
Mm-hmm.
So that's kind of where I'm coming from. I'm not interested in recovering what Calvin actually said. I think he says some weird stuff from time to time. I think he says some really good stuff from time to time. I think the people who have the loudest voice within Calvinism now are just, wrong. I think they're totally wrong on this stuff. I think they've, I think they're bifurcating an account of election, an account of predestination that's not theologically sustainable. So that's where I'd go. Yeah.
I was kind of curious.
Does that make sense, though, what I was
Yeah.
saying?
Yeah.
Okay.
You don't know how to explain the position that you have other than holding Calvinist roots, so therefore you kind of lean Calvinist.
Yeah, so it has roots in Calvinism, right? But I'm not I'm not concerned with recovering Calvin or whatever. I don't really care about that. Yeah.
So why are you scared to debate Mr. Batman on whether or not Christians are under the Torah?
I would actually do it, I think. I think I could do it. The only thing I worry about is getting too upset and aggressive,
Spartan is mean.
Spartan is mean.
I am mean.
It's 1:01. Yeah, it's okay. It's 1:01 a.m. I got a message at 1:01 that said, "I'm back. Let me in." I'm like, fool,
Yeah,
you've been
he's
in
mean.
like the studio for like 30 seconds.
He's mean.
I was annoyed because StreamYard on your phone is like so easy to leave. I like barely went to pick up my phone and I just left.
I feel like at the end of the day, Spartan is just a bad person, and we should just abandon him.
But I got these little babies to redeem myself. So.
That's true. They're so cute. They're so damn cute. Those guys.
Yeah, this is two little babies is as close as you're getting to heaven there either.
Oh, buddy.
When you gonna have kids, John?
JB's gonna get all the subscribers.
We're gonna be trying in the next year. Once we get settled. So I'm saying
I'm
this
gonna laugh
because,
if you end up with twins.
Yeah. Well, we'll see.
He's gonna
yeah,
have
I'd be sharing this if Laura, wasn't fine with me sharing it, but
no.
we're gonna be
I'm
trying.
not trying. I mean, I don't ever try to get too deep in people's personal life.
No.
I mean, always share what you feel comfortable.
But yeah,
sharing.
we want kids. We want kids. We want to start fairly soon. We'll see what happens. Yeah, we get some little.
Yeah, well, we had no intention of having kids yet, but
yeah.
I felt honored. Spartan actually told me like way before he announced it on Twitter. I was actually rather pleased with that. I was like, "Wow, that's nice, Spartan."
I did. I was
He was like,
freaking
"Don't
out.
tell
Like,
anybody."
great start, to be honest.
I got two. I got a 14-year-old and a 10-year-old.
I still think he's a bad dude, though, Spartan. I don't really know what to make of him.
I mean,
at this point.
you're a Calvinist, so you believe in total depravity. So we're all bad dudes.
Yeah. Well, no, you are specifically. I can distance myself from you as Calvinist.
Fair.
You're totally depraved. I'm good. I'm elect. Yeah.
So why do you hate Rob Bell?
I have a weird soft spot for Rob Bell.
I liked Rob Bell when I was a Christian, and this is before all his Universalist stuff came out.
Yeah, people hate on him, and I don't really get it. I get the sort of like, Oprah stuff. Like he's sort of becoming a part of this like pop religion stuff, whatever. But like, I think what he was doing when he wrote Love Wins, I think that was a good instinct on his part to try to get evangelicals to think more critically about universalism in, the limited way that he could, right? I thought that was cool. I think, and he's a decent preacher, right? Like he really is. He's a decent preacher. He can connect with young people pretty well, and I don't know.
We used to do his little videos in Sunday school class whenever I was going to church.
What were those called? Numa?
Numa or something like
Yeah,
that. Just
Numa videos. Yeah,
yeah, we used to do
yeah.
this. I used to like those.
Yeah.
And I'll be honest with you, he did one, and we did one, and it was a what is it? Everything is spiritual
Right.
thing that he did. It's like an hour long like presentation thing with a big dry erase board. There's like 4 dry erase boards or whatever.
Yeah.
Or whatever. And when I was a Christian, I always loved that. I was like, this thing actually like hits me, and I actually like feel this.
Yeah. I don't know. I have a soft spot for that guy. I think I don't know. I think he was thinking ahead of a lot of evangelicals when he was sort of involved in that sort of stuff. Now he's sort of more new age stuff, which is
Yeah, I don't know what he's doing now.
interesting, but yeah. Yeah.
I follow him on Instagram and on Twitter, but his Twitter page is nothing but him posting links to his Instagram page, and his Instagram page
Right.
seems to be him and his son surfing.
Yeah. Which is the most Rob Bell thing ever. Just surfing, just hitting the waves. Yeah.
That seems to be all he's like. All I see now. I don't ever see stuff like of him standing in front of a mega church.
No, not anymore. Yeah. Have
He
you
lost
listened
his
to
job, didn't he?
Yeah, he did. He did. Yeah. Have you listened to the Mars Hill podcast thing that's been going around?
Mm-mm.
No.
Mm-mm.
Okay.
Wow.
Spartan, have you?
He
may be. Yeah.
He may be away from.
It's kind of
TV.
exposing Mars Hill as, as we know, it's pretty insane. But
I don't even know who Mars Hill is or what Mars Hill is.
It's the Mark Driscoll types.
That name sounds familiar, but I can't place it.
Yeah, Mark Driscoll was he's sort of gotten to a place where he's less influential, but he was extremely influential like 10 years ago in evangelicalism. And there were a lot of different scandals that sort of arose from his churches. And like abuse and sexual misconduct and all of that. And so, yeah, I guess if you weren't really in the evangelical stuff before,
I've dove more into religion since I left than I did whenever I was.
Yeah. So yeah, Laura's like super into this podcast, which is sort of exposing that world, and it's really disturbing. It's really fascinating, simply as a sort of study of religion. Yeah, I would actually recommend that to you, JB.
Mars Hill.
Yeah, so it's let's see what the podcast is called. The Rise and Fall.
I listened to the first 2 episodes.
Of Mars Hill.
Yeah.
It's called the Rise and Fall of Mars Hill.
Okay.
Is the podcast.
I just followed it on Spotify.
Yeah, it's really fucked up.
Whoa, watch
obviously,
your language,
but-
Yeah, it's really popular too.
Oh, I'm not a pastor anymore, JB.
Not anymore.
I'm trying to.
He's allowed to
I'm
say
trying
that
to.
as much as he wants now.
I'm trying to get through Josh's book on the Old Testament, but
Nice.
I hate reading, so I went with the audiobook.
Trying to get through what?
Audiobook. Trying to
I
get
think
through
he
Dr.
is
Josh's
audiobooking
Old
it.
Testament.
Yeah.
Yeah, he had Seth
think he's-
Andrews
I
do
think
it,
he is.
and I can only take
Yeah,
so much
yeah,
Seth
yeah.
Andrews because he literally has the voice of God.
Yeah.
And
Right.
it was the second chapter was so hard to get through because that's when he's going through Mesopotamian history, and there are just so many
hard.
kings and titles and stuff, and
hard.
I'm just like,
Yeah.
I don't even know what you're saying right now, buddy.
Yeah. It's hard.
But yeah, I'm trying to get through it. I hate reading, so I'm hoping that I can I'm gonna try to
Sorry, bro.
get some audible books going and seeing if I can't get some stuff going that way. More with some reading stuff, but I've
Well,
never.
I can send you some audiobook recs if you want. Do you have Audible?
Yeah, I just joined for
I'll
Audible.
send you some recs on there. Yeah.
I don't know how long I'm gonna keep it. I hate having to pay like $10 a month just to let somebody listen to me.
Yeah.
Listen
It's
to a book. I
all
gotta
about
pay
how
you
you
$10 so
use
that I
it. Yeah. Yeah.
listen to a book.
Yeah.
Well, learn
I'll
how to
send you
read then, I
some
guess.
recs. Yeah. Right.
Hey, I believe I tried to start a book club with somebody in this chat headed into the new year, and they just completely ghosted me.
Yeah, and I did a book club with somebody else instead.
Yep.
Oh.
I mean, I already found out that I'm a big jerk, so I'm just getting exposed.
Yeah. Well, I'm glad you understand that now.
It's just consistent with my character.
Yeah, it is. Yeah.
I just blame not having. I don't have libertarian free will, so I couldn't have done otherwise.
Oh God! Don't. Oh my God,
Dude.
John Buck. The worst defense of hell imaginable.
He said hell. He said hell was
defense.
good.
I know, which is insane.
Yeah, hell's not that
That's like
bad.
the most insane thing I've ever heard.
So how do you defend the position of hell then? That's not that bad.
I don't know. I don't think there is no good defense of hell. I don't think.
Now, can I ask you a question, John? And I may have asked you this. I may have asked you this in our discussion that we had, but I forgot where it went.
Yeah. Sure.
Do you think that you went to universalism because of what you read in the Bible, or do you think an issue with hell pushed you towards universalism first?
Yeah, good question. I think you did ask me this, and I think I
And
said,
I may have. I can't remember what that was.
Yeah, I think, and I'm trying to remember what I said. I think I said it was a combination of what I saw in the Bible, and also sort of, reflecting on this as a human being.
Yeah, no, that's
I think it's a both and for me. I don't think there's decisive evidence in the text for an eternal conscious torment. But I think beyond that, I don't think there's any good coherent theological account of judgment that leads to basically an eternal torment for people. None of that makes sense to me, at all. Okay. I'm constantly baffled by people who think that, we can make a philosophical case for this, we can make a, biblical case for this, whatever that means.
Justified moral reasons. All you have to say.
Yeah. It's honestly heartbreaking to me that people think, if you actually think that God is the good and God is a loving parent, the most loving parent imaginable. And beyond that God would consign somebody to eternal torment and separation from God's self. That
Well,
makes
hold on.
no sense to me.
Let me
Makes
let me
no
ask
sense.
let me ask Ethan a quick question. Ethan, you're a parent. Would you ever let your kids burn in a burning building if you could save them,
No,
no matter what
no.
they did?
I think, yeah.
Even if you
For me though,
gave
like,
them like, a bunch of choices, if you gave them,
yeah. I
you
mean,
told them a while ago,
but
like,
one
don't
thing
go into that building. Yeah. Yeah.
Like, isn't that the
the
entire
biggest
reason?
thing for
Like,
me though is like, well, that. Hold on. The thing for me is like that just seems ridiculous. Like I just think that's like just a stupid argument. But I think like the better like argument for hell is like people honestly choose not to be with God. Like that's the one that I
Yeah,
think
but
like at least makes a little bit
the
more sense.
but it
But
doesn't.
let me
It
just
doesn't.
say, yeah, I'm not done. No,
Yeah,
I
sorry.
know. Let me just say why I know that doesn't make sense. Yeah, no, it's just that like to me the only way that makes sense is that God must not be all that good then.
Right.
Because
Right.
if God
Exactly
really is
right.
like the good, the end of all beings,
Yep.
then you just
Yep.
can't make a like it does you're inherently irrational to not choose God. It's just the same as someone like cutting themselves because they think it's gonna make them feel better. It's not.
Yeah. So the
And
reason I
but
responded the way,
I think a lot of
yeah,
people think that yeah
the reason I
yeah
responded
that's
the
fine
way
go
that I
but yeah
did
I
was
think
because John Buck said that God is the good, right?
exactly
He admitted that, and he said that. So if you're actually working with that, then any sort
okay
of
yeah
inclusion of, somebody deciding to damn themselves or whatever is nonsensical, right? It doesn't
totally
make any sense. So that's why I was sort of a bit more harsh on the libertarian point. Yeah,
now here's
but yeah, I
here's
think
kind of my point. Don't we agree that a child's ability to choose something should be limited based on their understanding of the consequences? Like,
yes,
when you're dealing with something as an eternal afterlife, like I don't think there's any way
yes,
you can say somebody fully understands this
yeah,
situation.
exactly, yep,
exactly. I think
yep,
David Bentley Hart gets at that basically.
yep. I think you're
I mean,
totally right.
Like we just cannot have enough understanding of the consequences to merit eternal hell. That just is impossible.
Yep, it's incoherent. It is.
It
It
is.
just is.
I mean, the only way that God would be just in doing that is if you literally knew that He just like, here you go, here's your choice. Like, I'll strip away all biases from you, give you this magical power to like make this one ultimately free choice. And someone's like, yes, hell for me.
Yeah. Right.
I'm
Right. Exactly.
And like, no one
That's a
does that.
great point. That's a great point, Ethan.
I'll,
Yeah,
if
that's
it's
right.
possible,
Because any of
I
your
would.
like because even if you do understand, it's still your biases from before you understood are still clouding your judgment or whatever. That's the thing. Like
Right.
we don't have
Right.
perfect free judgment. We're all screwed up by sin. That's what I don't understand either. Like if you're a Christian, you believe this, right? Like that sin has a real effect on the world, right? No, not. I don't know.
Well, I mean, I think John is beholden to a certain account of sin that's been handed to him by really a certain account of Catholic theology. He's not representative of Catholicism more broadly, but I think for him, sin is being habituated in a negative way, right? So he brought up habituation a few times, right? You can be habituated in a good way or a bad way, right? but I think that sin is much more deep than that. I think it's much more difficult to sort of pin down, I guess, than just something that you do or can be habituated into. And then, the good stuff, being a part of life in God, being a part of the church, whatever, is being habituated in a good way, right? So,
Yeah, I think of like the best analogy to me at first. Sin is like the most addictive drug in the world, and we're all exposed to it when we're like 4 years old. Like we just have no choice but to get exposed to it before we can ever make a rational, like fully we can understand what's going on, and before we know it, like we're all addicted to it. So that's like when you say I'm like a Calvinist, or there are like plenty of points of Calvinism, like total depravity and stuff, like not the way they understand it, but a form of it I think makes total sense.
Yeah, I
So
agree.
now with y'all both being Christians, there's a philosophical term for it. I'm not going to try to get into the deep philosophical parts of it, but there's a philosophical term or whatever for believing that somebody can live a perfect life as far as sin free. Do y'all believe that is possible at all? I guess for y'all it would be not, because y'all don't even believe in free will, correct?
No, I
Well, I
believe
just
in
think
free
that's like
will.
a misunderstanding of sin. Yeah, I believe in free will too. Not that's what I was trying to say in the chat too. Like just because you don't believe in libertarian free will doesn't mean you don't believe in free will.
Well,
But
there's
that
I believe
also
in the
what you said,
freedom
JB,
of the
is like a
will.
certain
Yeah.
yeah, but you were getting at a certain understanding of sin that is like only like a choice that we make. And I think sin is much more than that.
what else is it?
Well, it's the way that Paul describes it is as a force or a power.
Okay, how did the patriarchs describe it? How did the patriarchs describe it?
The
Like
patriarchs in terms of
Abraham? How did
Abraham.
Abraham
Yeah.
Well, it'd be a little less. It'll be a little bit on the inside of Abraham, like in between Abraham and
I think you're talking about like
Paul.
church fathers.
No, I don't want anybody after Paul. I want the people between Abraham and
Oh.
Paul. I want to know how the Jews of the Old Testament understood what sin was.
Oh, yeah. There were lots of different ways. I think they understood it as a sort of impurity in a lot of ways. Stuff that was sort of infecting the holy space, which is why you have sacrifice, right? That's why the sacrificial system is set up, is to expel, sin
Yeah,
from
but
that
didn't Paul
space.
say that you
It's not
can't
a
get rid of
choice.
sin with a sacrifice?
Paul doesn't say that, no. But what I'm saying is that early on, the sin and death and all that sort of stuff was dealt with in the sacrificial system, or I mean, in some ways, it was outside of that in terms of God's forgiveness. God could just forgive somebody and forgive, a certain infraction or whatever. But for me as a Christian, I'm thinking in terms of what Jesus discloses as sinful, which is being captured by this sort of force, this sort of power, that somebody like Paul describes as sin and death, even evil powers, Satan sometimes. So yeah, there are lots of different ways that people talk about sin. I think that the most accurate way for me is that it's a power. It's something that holds you captive. It's something that incarcerates you. It's something that brings you down. And I think that what Ethan was talking about with addiction is actually a very good sort of analogy or illustration for this. Yeah. So yeah, there are lots of different ways that people understand sin, right? So
I mean,
yeah.
I think the best way to deal with it is just to be like me and to say that it doesn't exist, and you don't have a problem.
Well, there is a sense in which it doesn't exist, because it's
Oh,
not
here we go.
created. It's not created, right?
What, sin?
Yeah, it's not created. God didn't make sin.
Sure he did.
In what way?
Well, God created things with the ability to sin, and he had a choice to do otherwise.
No, I totally disagree with all of that. What's implied in that sort of account in the metaphysics sort of behind that.
So God made us without the ability to sin, and yet we were able to do something that God didn't give us the ability to do.
Right. Yeah. It's this is where dialectical theology is very helpful, because what you can say within this is building on a very specific tradition of philosophy and theology, is that sinning is an impossible possibility, right?
Or sounds like a contradiction.
Well, no, it's a dialectic.
That's like when I told my daughter earlier she needed to throw a straight curveball.
Yeah, it's actually not a contradiction. It's a dialectic. It's an impossible possibility. It's something that God didn't intend and didn't create, but somehow was able to make its way into the cosmos. We don't know how to specify about its origins. We don't know how to actually talk about that specifically, but it has real effects. There's actually nothing theologically and philosophically problematic with that. Unless you're working with a certain sort of rigid account of theory and language. So, yeah.
So
I think it can work perfectly fine. But yeah, I mean, this is a whole other discussion.
Yeah,
and
no.
I didn't want to introduce that as part
No,
of
you're good. I'm gonna ask you.
cringing as
I'm assuming
tried
that, like,
to-
yeah, I'm just like 1:30 a.m. like a random stream is a complicated point to introduce, because I watched your video on like the problem of evil or whatever like 4 times and still like I'm pretty confused. But
Oh, I haven't seen that one.
Yeah, it's hard.
Let me see if I can find
It's
it.
tricky.
Is it on? It's on
tricky
Apocalypse.
stuff. Yeah, some of it, it's about thinking about the categories that we're using to talk about evil
yeah,
and sin
the big
and all of that.
analogy you do at the end with the music, the big analogy with the music, I totally like that. Totally, I understand that. But as far as some of the intricacies,
Is it
very complicated.
is it your essay review?
No.
I can't.
Hang on.
You can send it to me on Twitter if you find it sometime. You gotta do it right now.
He's on a mission.
Oh, here it is.
Yeah. Did you watch SJ's video yesterday, John?
No. Sorry.
And she's
I'm not.
she's arguing against the guy with the PhD about why he's wrong and Bible stuff.
That's a totally good look. Yeah, right.
But Michael Brown says.
Yeah. Yeah, whatever Michael Brown says is true. A Zionist, whatever he says is true. Yeah, about the Bible. So that's great. Yeah, yeah. Michael Brown is a garbage scholar, as you know. I think most people would agree. But yeah, it's late, guys. I'm gonna go to bed.
Nope, don't do it. All night stream.
I sent the video in the private chat, so yeah.
All right. Well, it was
All right,
nice talking
guys.
to you. Yeah. Have a good night.
Do it. Have a good night, Spartan. I'll go ahead and let you going. You leaving? Who's leaving?
I'm gonna head out too.
John's leaving.
Oh, all right,
John's
John. Have a good
leaving.
night.
I mean, I'll leave. I mean, I'm assuming. Yeah.
Good to see you,
Me and
John.
JB
Good to
can
talk
hang
to you
out for
again.
another couple
See you
minutes.
guys. Much love.
See you, man.
Goodbye.
Y'all have fun up there in Roanoke.
I just picked up. I put the baby down, and then he started yelling. So now I got him back.
You did. Do you need me to let you go? I can let you go. I'm not
They're
doing
like,
anything. Just
no, I'm fine. Yeah, Jude is 12 pounds now. That's the exciting thing in my life.
I'm moving this from my computer to my phone. So you're gonna get a crazy DM from me. You can just disregard it. What would you like to see on my channel, Spartan?
I don't know. Whatever
Okay.
your heart desires.
I want Spartan to come on and talk about impossible possibilities.
Yeah, I don't know exactly how to communicate that, but I'll talk about it.
I want I did reach out to him. I got 2 streams I'm trying to work on. I think they'll be good once we get them, if I can get them done.
Who are they?
Doing a 3-way panel with Nathan Ormond, Ben from Amateur X Jeet, and Dustin Crummett. Is that his name?
Yeah. What's it about?
About what is the Bible?
Okay.
And it's just going to be a kind of a thing because Nathan is an agnostic that is doing like Bible studies and actively going to church and stuff like that and wanting to become a Christian.
I resonate a lot with like the type of Christianity that Nathan's participating in right now.
And
Like,
and then there's Dustin who's a committed Christian and Ben who's not. And just kind of give 3 different perspectives on the Bible. And it's not going to be anything crazy. It's like, what is the Bible to you? What does it mean to you? Like, should the stuff in it still hold relative value today, and how so? Those kind of topics.
no, I think it'll be interesting. I'm interested to hear Dustin Crummett's view. I actually don't like, and anytime I've listened to him, it's always been like philosophy or political topics or something. I had him on my channel, but
and the next one I'm doing, I was going to tell John about it when he was on, but just kind of like got buried and didn't get to it. But I'm trying to. I've already reached out. They've agreed to come on. We just got to get a date set out and time and stuff to get Randall Rouser to come on and do a discussion on annihilationism.
okay.
I would like John in the live chat for that. That's why I was going to tell him about it if he can, because I think he'd be able to throw some good questions in.
Yeah, basically, John was gonna have Randall Rouser on his channel, but sometimes Randall Rouser can like be cool, and then like he can just act very childish, basically. Like was like a disagreement on Twitter, and he just like was like, I don't know, arguing with one of John's friends about like basically nothing, but being like very rude and just like
He got
not
mad at
budging,
me.
even when they like hint. Yeah, like they showed him like, dude, you're wrong. Like, just stop with what you're saying. He's just like tripled down, quadrupled down on this like point that was like flat out wrong. And
He
so it
got
just
he
showed
got
like a kind of
him and I
dishonesty.
got
But I
into it.
like Randall Rouser.
I like him overall. Him and I kind of got into it like when I first came across him because he put a thing out there like, can historians investigate miracles or something like that. And I threw Michael O'Connor's quote on there where it's like, historians agree that miracle claims lie outside the bounds of history. You know? And he like,
Mm-hmm.
and he, and then he retweeted it, but he didn't do a quote tweet or something like that. Like he screenshotted it or something like that, and then retweeted it and was like, "This guy thinks Michael O'Connor says that historians can't investigate miracles." And I'm like, first of all, you could have tagged me if you wanted me to be involved in this. Secondly, that's exactly what he says. He's arguing for the fact that they should be able to, while acknowledging that they currently don't.
Yeah. Yeah, Randall Rouser is an interesting character for sure.
So, all right, man. I'm gonna wrap this up. I guess I'm gonna try to get ready for bed.
Yeah.
The wife should be home
But
soon.
I need to put this guy down.
Like 1:30 and 1:35.
Yeah, I'm gonna put it on mute and put this guy down. But
You good, man? Well, have a good one, Spartan. It's good to talk to you again, man.
all
I'll
right.
never talk to you.
Yeah, be good.
All right, later.
For sure. This was fun.
Yeah.
This was fun.
All right.
Yeah.
Later.
Have a good